Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We are preparing to kick off our 14th annual State of North Omaha and State of African America. We want to welcome you. We are here live from the Village Empowerment Center on the campus of the Omaha Home for Boys. And we want to jump right into our presentations. I guess a couple minutes and our presenters will be joining us as well. We're co-hosted today with Jonathan Chapman. I want to welcome him and thank him for helping to put things together today. So Jonathan, any opening comments before we get started?
I am excited about this day. I'm looking forward to a great conversation, to some phenomenal information and updates about the wonderful things that have been taking place in the community, and looking forward to getting it kicked off with of course, some conversation and dialogue about some of the difficulties that we've experienced over this last year, but how that has not deterred our community from being able to move forward and continue to make progress. So I'm excited about the day, Willie.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to jump right into the presentation. Should be on the screen here. We want to, as we always do, walk through data. So this is our 14th annual. Just as some background, the Empowerment Network was formed in 2006, and our very first African-American State of African Americans was held December 13, 2006. You can see from the timeline, in 2008, we did some research with Pew Research Economic Summit. The approval of the North Omaha Village Plan was in 2011. And the transformation plan, which we'll be updating you on today with the data, was actually launched in 2014 with some planning, and then launched formally in 2015. So that's just some background. Looking at all of the data and some of the research that came together from the Pew Research Center, these are the 10 areas that we're really focused on from 2008 to 2014: improving graduation rates, reducing violent crime, decreasing unemployment. These are the factors that Pew told us that if you implement programs and strategies to address these issues, you will see and create thriving communities. So from that, in 2014-15, we began bringing together not only the community, but elected officials, business leaders, and others. And we developed with the community some goals that we would like to see us reach by 2025. Those goals then were broken down into benchmarks by year. So this annual report, State of North Omaha, State of African Americans, there's two separate reports. That's basically what we bring to the table. And just to quickly jump into some of the data, we have a lot of various presenters that will give you up-to-date information as well. But we set a goal of connecting 5,000 people to employment. By the 5-year mark of the strategy, we had connected 2,000. There are 1,600 fewer unemployed residents in North Omaha, 2,100 fewer unemployed African Americans citywide. When it comes to youth, our goal was to have 2,000 youth connected to employment. At the 5-year mark, we had just over 1,100. Our goal by 2025 was to have 250 new businesses. This is one where we have exceeded. Just in a 5-year period, there were 328 new starts in North Omaha, 2,500 housing units. There's been over 1,000 by the 5-year mark. The graduation rate, which started at 64%, had reached 77% by the mid-year mark, 81% for African Americans. A few more stats that we want to make sure you know. We also set a goal for voter participation. And by 2020, the voter participation mark in North Omaha is 56% in the presidential election. We wanted to bring 2,500 families out of poverty. At the 5-year mark, over 1,000 have been documented to come out of poverty in North Omaha specifically. Actually, that's citywide, and then 300 in North Omaha. 80% safer community. We measured that by reductions in gun violence. By the 5-year mark, there was a 74% reduction in gun violence. The last measure that we really wanted to do was, in order to rebuild the community, we need to bring visitors and tourists and those that can bring the economic vitality into the community as well. We set a goal of being able to attract 250,000 visitors on an annual basis, just tracking from various sources. We know that we've documented at least 55,000 on an annual basis with a variety of events and activities. So a summary of that, this is African Americans. This is citywide African Americans. There's two different reports. We've been able to decrease poverty from 31% to 21%. The unemployment rate went from 21% down to 7.5%. The graduation rate increased from 64% to 81%. And the percent of African Americans with a bachelor's degree went from 16% to 22%. That's a summary specifically related to African Americans. we will get deeper into some of the additional data that we have for North Omaha. Let me stop there. Just ran through that very quickly. Typically, David Droz is here to give, and he's helped us put together all the data. But because of COVID and all the issues that were faced in 2020, we decided to switch gears and really hear from more of our partners about what they're doing to show what they're doing to address this. So you just got to note that you're not able to see some of the slides. So we'll come back to that. Why don't I switch gears and go back into having our partners now speak about what they were doing to address COVID in 2020 and how that has impacted our overall plans. And we'll come back to the slides in just a few minutes. But with that, we have with us Kenny McMorris, Nancy Williams, Teresa Hunter, and Erin Porterfield. Jonathan, if you can talk a little bit more about, you help facilitate some of the meetings throughout the year related to how are we as a community addressing COVID, but beyond that, continue to press forward in North Omaha. Any thoughts, comments before we move forward?
Yeah, I think this is the perfect way to begin our conversation today because, based on the data that you presented from pre-COVID times, we were moving in the right direction in our community in a lot of ways. And COVID really, of course, put a damper on what the numbers look like. But I believe what we've seen during this time is a different level of collaboration, a different level of the community coming together. This global pandemic, this crisis really broke down some barriers and enhanced our ability to work together in a more effective and more efficient way. And we're already seeing the positive impacts in our community from that. And so I'm excited because, when we get together and we have these discussions, what we hear is ideas sharing and resource sharing, and really working together to help everyone maximize their impact in their unique space in the community. And that's what it's going to take for us to be able to get forward. And so I'm excited about being able to hear these updates from Kenny McMorris and Nancy Williams and Erin Porterfield and Teresa Hunter, because each of them is doing some amazingly impactful work in their part of the community, especially during this COVID crisis.
So Kenny, obviously Charles Drew has been a key partner with us for 15 years, and your leadership role in helping to address this pandemic. Can you speak to, here we are talking about the state of North Omaha, state of African Americans, from your perspective as CEO of Charles Drew, what's going on, what's happened, and where do we go from here?
Sure. No. Well, good morning, Empowerment Network family, the Omaha community, and those that are from around the world, I guess, that may be tuning in. Thanks, Willie and Jonathan, for providing the platform. I would say that when you really think about the work that Charles Drew is doing, healthcare is one in which we know from a health equity standpoint that many individuals have challenges with navigating the healthcare delivery system. In many cases, it really is tied to understanding how to do that and improving the overall health literacy. So what this pandemic has done is really exposed the cracks in our system, not only in public health, but also in how we go about community health, and then ultimately what it means to really be healthy. And so Charles Drew, our staff, our leadership, our board, and quite frankly, the community as a whole has really stood in the gap to make sure that people understand the importance of being health and well, and not only just physical health, but mental health. This experience has really tapped into things that when you really think about why we need to connect and be around each other and support one another, healthcare is so important, and access to healthcare is so important. So with that being said, Charles Drew, and just statistically, just to give a couple of numbers, if you don't mind, to date, we have provided PCR testing for roughly nearly 12,000 individuals. The testing component is so important. You got to know your status. What that will allow you to do is be better about isolation with your family, come up with plans to support and make sure that you're reducing and mitigating the spread within the community. Additionally, we will be starting next week making appointments for individuals to get vaccinated if you are a patient of Charles Drew Health Center. That is so important. And so I think about all of the things that we've laid out, really exercising and putting a megaphone to the importance of wearing a mask, keeping your distance, not gathering in large crowds. All of those things are going to be so important as we move forward. But the most important thing I would say is really the collective power of the community. I think there's some things that we have been able to do as a community to really reduce the spread, quite frankly. In some other urban areas, the incidence and prevalence of individuals that are Black, Hispanic, and Latino have had higher contraction rates of the virus than what we're experiencing here. So that's something we should be proud about as a community. So I will say that during this time, if anything else, this has shown us the importance of networking, the importance of working together. Many of the individuals between Nancy and Teresa and Erin, we work closely together, dealing with food insecurity, making sure individuals that may have lost their jobs have access not only to get testing, but then being able to get back into the workforce. And then housing is so important. If you don't have housing, you don't have healthcare in many cases. So it has been really an exercise in community and resiliency. And so we're just proud to be a part of it. Very proud of the staff and the individuals that are putting health first in our community.
Kenny, thank you for that update. And we may have a chance to come back to you for another piece talking about the vaccinations and where we go from here. But I want to switch gears because one of the biggest drivers and biggest needs that we saw throughout the year was the need for food. And Nancy Williams and other collaborating partners really jumped in. We're already doing great work, but jumped in to really help meet that need as best we could. So with that, Nancy Williams from No More Empty Pots, can you speak to where things are with addressing the food need in our community?
Yes, good morning. I'm going to go to sharing my screen to see if that will help with what we are talking about this morning. And I see, nope, I see the application window. We'll go there. Hopefully you can see this. Not sure if you can, because I can't tell. There we go.
Yeah.
What you're seeing. So I'm going to go to full screen mode here.
Perfect.
All right, awesome. So what I'm going to talk about this morning is really about the engagement. And I will share that on March 13th, we closed the doors to the hub and our offices to the public. And March 30th, we launched Feeding Our Neighbors, which is the emergency food response portion of a program that we call Community Harvest that we run year round. And that provides prepared meals made by scratch from local produce by our chef and culinary staff and a whole bunch of volunteers. And we also distribute fresh produce from local farmers in Nebraska and Iowa in the form of a CSA. So we were already doing that program through Community Harvest. And on March 30th, we launched the emergency food portion. And to give you just a little bit of information so you can see what that looked like, in partnership with Charles Drew, we developed a flyer that they could use to hand out to patients or potential patients, any of their patrons that came through, so that they had information on where to find emergency food, where to get meals, how to connect with us. And you also see on this flyer that you can sign up online, you can call, you can text. And then if you need a translator, then we partnered to also help make that happen. One trick that our staff found is that if we start out by text, we can use Google Translate to communicate a lot faster. So we were able to connect with a lot of people where English is not their first language. And we had several partners that supported this effort. And you can see the funders, that the initial funders to help make this happen. And these are meals that are ready to eat in microwavable and oven safe trays. And so this is an example. This is two of our staff. On the left side of the screen, you'll see this is pasta with local spinach and some herbs. And we tried to make sure that we had a vegetable along with some sort of starch or grain. And on the right side, you'll see that one of our staff is showing the meal packaged with labeling. And the numbers for those in March, we started out with 550 meals and about 20 shares of a CSA. Those numbers grew each month. So what you're looking at now is a snapshot of March to August. There were over 8,000 people served. There were over 26,000 meals distributed, over 10,000 pounds of food, over 1,300 CSA shares, and we had served 46 zip codes in Nebraska and Iowa by then. And you can see one of the quotes from a recipient saying that how much it has helped them. But what I really want to direct your attention to is the bottom of the sheet, where it shows all of our partners at that time that we were working with to distribute this food. And Empowerment Network is one of those partners. And the village captains have been really instrumental in connecting us with groups of people who need food support, and also connecting with the opportunity to expand that service beyond the people at those initial locations. Whispering Roots was very instrumental in helping to get the distribution out, along with the Simple Foundation in the beginning, so that we could focus on the food production. And that was important because we hadn't made 1,000 meals a week before, but we had to learn how to do that rather quickly. And at some points throughout the year, we made up to 3,000 meals in a week. And we also relied on partners in the community, like Okra African Grill and Big Mama's Kitchen and Catering, when we didn't have the capacity, because either we had a positive COVID case or we just didn't have any more room to store any more food. We could lean on these partners, pay them to make the food, and still ensure that everyone in the community that requested a meal got one. And so to show you where we ended up in December, there were over 50,000 meals distributed in over 48 different zip codes in Nebraska and Iowa. This does not include a distribution that we partnered on to send food to South Sioux City, South Sioux City, Nebraska. There were over 500 boxes of food, along with local chickens that had enough food to feed 2,000 people. That was done in December, in addition to the 43,000 pounds of food here and the 3,700 CSAs that were distributed. And you can see the logo soup at the bottom. We wanted to make sure that we have visibility of who contributed to this effort. But there's so many, we can't fit all the logos on one page without just doing like a logo page, which is probably what's going to happen when we do the annual report. But this is just a snapshot to show you the difference from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and all of the folks that it took to make this happen. We had several volunteers that helped make this happen. And we could not have done this with the partnership of all of the organizations that's listed, and all of the individuals and the foundations that contributed and the individuals. There were donations from $1 to $50,000 from individuals. This was one of the most collective efforts I've ever seen in my tenure working with this organization, but also serving in a community development capacity. And this is truly a people-powered effort.
Nancy, we want to thank you so much for the update and all of your efforts and all of the partners involved in making sure that we, all the people that you've identified that helped get food out and are continuing to do. It's not over. You're still doing it, even greater numbers that are out there, greater need that's out there. But thank you and all the partners. One of the other areas that obviously there's been concern about is evictions, foreclosures, and what's happening in the housing area. So we are finally starting to stabilize some of moving into home ownership. That was a big focus last year when we had this report. Teresa Hunter, CEO of Family Housing Advisory Services, can you give us a feel of what's going on in the area of housing, home ownership, evictions? Teresa Hunter from Family Housing Advisory Services.
I sure can. And thank you, Willie. From people having to lose their jobs or having a reduction in their hours, it caused a lot of people to become unstable. And this is not the time to, end up in those types of situations. And fortunately, we've had moratoriums that have happened to allow people to not have to pay their rent or their mortgage. But at the same time, what has happened is that we've been able to get money that has allowed us to provide services. And like Nancy said, it's not just been family housing, but it has been a lot of people that have come together to do this. So we've been able to access CARES Act dollars that provided mortgage and rent assistance. And we were able to work with the United Way, with the metro area continuum of care for the homeless. And that has also included like Heart Ministry Center, Together Incorporated, Heartland Family Services, NCAB, Salvation Army, the ENOA, just different people. But in this effort, FAS alone distributed in rent assistance over $250,000, and we helped about 3,400. Now this is we're still working on it, so the numbers are still growing. 3,400 families stay in their home during COVID, and that's just on the rental side. And you can put I think I have access to operate as well. Maybe not. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that. So, but on the mortgage side, we were able to have received mortgage assistance for like 163 people, and for 114 actually qualified for the mortgage assistance. And I'll tell you what is phenomenal about that. And so that totaled like $290,000. So altogether, in both rent and utilities, we distributed more than $500,000. And what's phenomenal about the mortgage is normally there's money available for rent, but not for mortgage assistance, right? And what we had to do, though, is to help people understand that when there's a moratorium, it does not mean that that money is forgiven. You still have to pay it eventually. And so our biggest concern is when this moratorium is over, all of these people are going to be in crisis because they're going to owe all this money. And so to be able to offer and have that opportunity to have that money available was just awesome. And as Willie was going down the things that he was saying that we had committed to being able to do, one of them was home ownership. And so he had just said, Teresa, how are we going to do this? Helping people that are in foreclosure and or moving toward foreclosure and still keep the dream of home ownership alive, right? But I think that the biggest illustration of that is that, and I'll tell you right now, people are still coming for the financial education. They're still taking the other classes for mortgage and home buyer education as well. And it's a phenomenal thing to see, because to me, these people are basically saying, when this is all over, when we're able to breathe again, I am going to be ready to move. I'm going to have my finances in order. I'm going to have my, home ownership plan in order. I will have taken that class and learned what I need to do to get ready. And I know that there've been a lot of questions, though, that have come over and over about equity and how does that work? What does that really mean? And I did want to share a slide that I have, and I can't share it with you, but it shows that really vivid picture of what net worth looks like and how that happens. And basically what we have here, it shows that an African American person's net worth is more than half acquired from their home ownership, which means we may not have investments and we may not have stocks and things like that, but if we can acquire home ownership, at least we will have the worth that we will have, the value from our home. And the simplest way that I can say that in my really short time is just imagine paying your rent every month to somebody, and imagine staying in that home for 15 years or 30 years and paying your rent faithfully. So we're paying the rent and we're paying it to someone who is paying their mortgage because they own the property, right? And so that allows them to then be able to say, okay, I own this. And after that 5-year period, that 30-year period, or 15 years or however much, and they've paid it off, they can come back to us and say, well, thank you for faithfully paying your mortgage. I no longer owe my bank. Now, guess what? You don't have to pay your rent. No, that is not going to happen, right? So what that means is now they own the full value of that property, whether it's worth now $100,000, $1 million, or whatever. That's now their net worth. And what is ours? Zero, because we did not acquire something by paying down our mortgage and letting our net worth value or net worth rise. So that is why we as African Americans need to invest in home ownership, or we need to find out one vehicle, and we need to do the stocks and all that too. But home ownership is a simple way, just because we have to pay a monthly housing payment anyway. So
Good.
Please do take your time to come in and do what you need to do and tell other people to do it. To acquire those things and to transform our community as well.
Teresa, thank you so much for the update and all the work that you and many others are doing in the area of housing. So we appreciate your leadership in that. The information that you wanted to share, we'll make sure that we incorporate it into the final report. I've seen a few questions on Facebook and through posts that people are asking about some of the data. So we will make that available here in the next week, that people will be able to download it. The final category in this first segment is looking at employment, and job training obviously has been a major priority, getting people connected with employment. We set a goal of connecting 5,000 with employment over this 10-year period. We were right at the halfway mark, and then we were hit by COVID. We've asked Erin Porterfield, who leads Heartland Workforce Solutions as an executive director and CEO. Erin, can you give us a picture and a snapshot what's happening in the area of employment, specifically in North Omaha, but can you help us understand what's going on and what are some of the solutions? Erin Porterfield.
Good morning, Willie. Thanks for asking me to join in, and good morning, friends. This year has been unreal, hasn't it? We never predicted anything like what we're experiencing, and we're getting through it to the other side. You know, when March happened and everybody, or so many people, were devastated by immediate layoffs and thrown into an area of unemployment application and the technology associated with all of that. It was a shock to our community's system, wasn't it? There were days when we would have 200 people outside looking for help, waiting to get inside for their employment claims, and struggling to understand the process, trouble getting through on the phone. The good news is that Heartland Workforce Solutions was able to stay open with the help of local foundations that were there for us to provide our customers with PPE, cleaning, and all of that was necessary for the staff to provide service safely. When we are experiencing that, we know that the Omaha metro area shouldered at times about 48% of all of the unemployment insurance claims in Nebraska. And if we want to drill down even tighter, the majority of those unemployment claims happened in Douglas County. That doesn't surprise us in that the population density for Douglas County is so great, not only for people who are employed, but also for the businesses that were affected by the layoffs and the devastation there. So now, fast forward, we know that Nebraska is the lowest unemployment rate state in the nation, and I double checked to see what it is today, and it's 2.8 unemployment rate for the state of Nebraska. When we think about the local area, the Omaha metro area, specifically Douglas County that holds North Omaha, we're looking at a rate of about 3.2, which is still fairly low. In terms of the projections, what we know is that the talent availability and job market reporting analysis for Greater Omaha was released by Dr. Eric Thompson, UNL, on the 27th this week. I provided that to Willie so that he can put that into the materials available to you to look at. But what we see there is that projection of employment rate, it's going to go down quick because of the decreased restriction, because of the the inoculation that's available, et cetera. So we're going to see that decrease dramatically still. We also know that the businesses that are coming online in our local area are transportation, logistics, distribution, healthcare, the call centers, IT. These are exponentially available. Also construction. So what we're looking at here locally is making sure that people understand that ease of connection to get a little bit of training to get into that position that's going to get them up. We're seeing that a number of folks in the Omaha metro area came to us for certification assistance for micro business, for IT certification, for CNA, for CMA, for program management and program exams. We teamed up with MCC, who, as you know, administered CARE Act dollars, and that was short-term training for a number of folks that could get in quickly and get that training so that they could obtain jobs. That kind of partnership will continue forward. When we think about what's available right now for folks who are still finding their way through unemployment claims, on to what am I going to do next? Am I returning to my job or am I moving forward? There are many workforce system partners available who have that training dollar available for people right now. And that training doesn't end there. It's also connection with the business that will hire. So these are the pieces that we're looking at going forward. When Willie asked me to provide the number of people who were employed for that period of Department of Labor, they're going to need more time to figure out what that number is. And we will connect going forward, Willie, as you mentioned, that we'll have another opportunity to look deeper into that data specific to North Omaha zip codes.
Erin, thank you
yes.
very much. We'll continue to follow up with you and make sure that information to Heartland Workforce Solutions, Urban League, and our other partners are a part of that report. And just so everybody that's paying attention and listening in today, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We're really tight on making sure we get a quick update from each area, and then we'll have a follow-up in a couple of weeks, even with more interaction. So thank you, Erin, for all your work and partnership around addressing employment. So thank you very much. We want to move to another major area that has been impacted by COVID. And we are grateful for the leadership of Dr. Cheryl Logan. Jonathan, if you want to jump in here and help bring her in.
So here we have one of the most phenomenal leaders across our land. There's been a lot of navigating and a lot of adjustment and a lot of flexibility that's been required during COVID. And our district superintendent, Dr. Cheryl Logan, has certainly been a leader in that arena, maximizing collaboration between different community entities, always seeking to do what's in the best interest of our children, while also taking into consideration the feedback and the perspectives of the constituents of the district. We're excited because of how intentional the collaboration has been throughout the community, but we know that COVID impacts continue to impact our education. And so she's going to provide an update today on where our children are throughout the district and what we can do to help support their continued and ongoing success and development. So Dr. Logan, we will pass it over to you.
Good morning, Jonathan. I appreciate you being able to, thank you for introducing me. And I'm in my own home, so I'm always Cheryl in my own home. I don't have any fancy title in my own home, but I appreciate that. So good morning, everyone. And we do continue to navigate the pandemic. We have recently found out we were going to our grant award from the federal government in reference to COVID recovery monies that we will talk about in a little bit, but this presentation will be brief. We promise. I'm joined today by Scott Schmidt-Bonney, who is our head of research and evaluation. I'm assuming he's in because he's going to show a brief, some slides to kind of let you know what's going on in terms of the achievement of our youngsters. And Scott, are you in? He's trying to join on his phone. I'm assuming the slides are up. So if we can just show the slides, and I can talk through the slides whenever we're ready.
Dr. Logan, we are working on getting your slides up here in just a second.
Okay, all right.
Yep, hold tight.
Looks
Okay.
like.
No worries.
All right, as we're doing that, getting it switched over, I did see that Scott was on temporarily, and then he was in and out, so we'll give him a chance to hopefully get logged on. If not, Dr. Logan.
Okay, I can continue. I have a few more things, and then
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I can talk about
We'll
it.
let you know when they're ready to go.
One of the most important things that the data is going to show is the importance of in-person learning and the discussion that needs to happen in every home about how children are doing, especially as compared to how they were doing the previous year in terms of their growth and assessment. It's difficult to compare year over year, but we're going to do our best job using the psychometrics that our team has put together. So if we move forward to the next slide. As many of you know, the MAP, the NWEA MAP test that we give throughout the state of Nebraska has the opportunity to let us know how far our students should have grown, and it's normative, so it's compared to others. So what we did was we did some analysis of schools in North Omaha, specifically for this presentation, and you can see the schools that are listed there. And we did this initial analysis. You'll see elementary and middle schools. Now, it's important to note that this analysis only includes in-person learners. We did not give this test remotely. There is not a way to give a test remotely and have integrity for the test. So we decided that we would only do the students that are in person. When I spoke to my peers around the country, that was a huge issue when folks were trying to give it remotely. And so since then, almost all schools have decided just to give it to the in-person students. Now, why that's important is that students of color and students who may receive free and reduced lunch are underrepresented because they are overrepresented in the numbers of students who have chosen to be fully remote. So that's really important because one of the things that's really important is that some people are out there saying, well, there's not as much loss as we thought. And well, there is significant loss. It's you can't compare a whole group of students in 1920 to a partial group, and especially when that partial group does not include the students for whom learning presents us the most challenges in terms of our work. So we can go to the next slide. In the high school analysis, you'll be able to see Benson, Central, North, and Northwest. The same statement that I gave earlier. Again, students who are remote are more likely to be students of color and also to be students who are receiving free and reduced lunch. So, and English language learners. So those are students that are overrepresented in the numbers of students whose families have chosen for them to be fully remote. So if we go to see that, I think I've explained that. So I want to, in elementary schools, about 25% of students who have chosen to be remote, and in middle school, that number is in the mid-high 30s, about 38% of students have been remote, and in fact are still remote as we move back into a 5-day model this week.
All right. Next
Scott,
slide.
Yeah, Scott, are you on?
I am.
Okay, all righty. I'm gonna let you take it from here. So we can go to the next slide, and you can go over the psychometric.
As we review student group performance, it is important to remember, as you all likely well know, that North Omaha is an incredibly diverse community. If we were to take 10 randomly selected students from across the schools Dr. Logan showed us, we would find that roughly 4 of the 10 students would be African American, 2 would be Hispanic, 2 would be white, potentially including one of my kids who attend North Omaha schools. 1 would be Asian, and 1 would be of 2 or more races. What this data shows is that all student groups have room to grow. We want to see all groups hitting 100% in meeting or exceeding their growth goals, as this is how students can best meet their academic potential. What is not shown, though, is that many students did grow, but they didn't meet their goals. You should also note that the Native group, the Native American group in particular, is a very small group. And so it's easy to have that change significantly over time, just given the smallness of that group. In general, performance varies from the average across all groups. At the elementary level, shown on this graph in reading, we see a variation from -2 to the average to +6 across student groupings. If we look at the middle school reading performance, we find that range is a little wider, from -4 to +6 by student group versus the average. Next slide, if you would, please. Performance in math compared to reading was lower, and by a significant margin. On average, 15% lower at the elementary level and 20% lower at the middle school level, comparing those averages in performance from reading to math. Therefore, the performance did vary to a little bit greater degree than reading across these student groups, -3 to +6 for elementary math, and -3 to +8 in middle school math. Next slide, if you would, please. Performance also varies by elementary school in both reading and math, with that most significant variation occurring in mathematic performance across our elementary schools. This data will be available to you in the sharing of the slide for your own perusal, but that was the point I wanted to make, is we do see variation across schools based on the students they tirelessly serve. If you'll move on to the next slide, we'll find that the middle school performance also varies significantly across schools and between schools when we compare reading versus mathematics performance. Again, as we saw with the student group performance, we see significant variations across schools and also within schools. Next slide, if you would, please. The next metric we will discuss is a little more recent than MAP data. That MAP data was collected between November and the first week of December. The grading data we'll now discuss spans the entirety of first semester. We will also compare grading current failure rates, 2 or more failures being the metric we're using, 1920 to 2021. 2021 data will also be split by those students learning in either learning modality, the Family 3-2 model, or fully remote. Next slide, if you would, please. Thank you. What we see here is that failure rates are up significantly from 1920 to 2021 school year, and most especially at the middle school level, and especially for remote learners. Specifically, failure rates for remote learners are up 17.2% at high school versus when they were in person in 2019-2020, and 34.4% at the middle school level versus when these students were in person during the 2019-2020 school year. Next slide, if you will. As a partial explanation for the variations in performance we've seen across school years, either in MAP or especially in grading, we find some explanation in current attendance rates. We know students benefit when they are in attendance in person 95% of the time. Hence our Strive for 95 goal that seeks to have students in attendance 95% of the instructional days and missing no more than 5%. No groups at the middle school level are currently hitting this mark. Additionally, the attendance rates for remote learners are especially concerning, given the challenges students have remaining engaged during this remote learning time. I imagine many of you, as you watch the performances today and the discussions that are evolving, are taking some time to multitask. This also impacts our students when they are learning remotely. I know I've caught my own middle school student numerous times before we were able to lock down permissions, having his class on mic off and camera off and attending to video games or other entertainment on the side. And so that really distracts students. And so even though we do see in some cases the remote learning attendance is a bit higher, we also know engagement during those attended times is a bit lower. And so that speaks to the criticality of not only attendance at the highest level possible, but also in the best learning modality possible for our students to allow them to focus on the content and fully engage in the learning that is occurring in their classrooms. If you'd go to the next slide, we'll review high school attendance rates. The view at high school is even worse, sadly. All groups and for each learning modality are attending in a lower rate than we see at the middle school level. This is a massive justification for our return to 5-day per week of in-person learning. As we all work together to ensure students reach their highest potential, we know this gives us the best opportunity to ensure students reach that actualized level. That concludes the data presentation we had for you this morning and are open for discussion.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. So the goal this morning is not to present our doom and gloom, but to present the facts as they exist. And that is that we have some discussions to have as a community around students attending in person. There are a multitude of reasons why families have chosen to evaluate their risks and make the choices that they have. What we are asking is that families make the considerations that they have to make and make in-school attendance the priority as they evaluate risk. We can give every student a device. We can provide internet access for every device, but that close personal connection that is a part of school is impossible to recreate on an iPad or a MacBook Pro. And we know that we have many things that are open. I make a joke every week about the Texas Roadhouse and that I've never been there, but whatever they serve must be really delicious because it's packed full of people on Friday evening. But we have to make our in-school attendance the priority. Now, we have a lot of other things going on in the community, and I don't have control of those things, whether they're open, closed, and so on and so forth. But what we can control as parents and as community leaders is to advise folks that some things are worth the risk and some things are not. And school is certainly worth it. Obviously, we have the mitigation strategies that are in place. We have on-demand testing for our folks. We have all of our high schools will have testing this week. The second, third, and fourth will be tested. Test Nebraska is coming in to all six of our high schools that are not a part of the pilot, to include Blackburn. Of course, Bryan and Northwest are already in a program where they have testing twice weekly. So we will continue having that available for staff. We can do either 2,500 or 5,000 tests a day. It's a lot of tests we can do per day on an on-demand, working with our partner at UNMC to provide the test. And we say we're not doing the testing; we just collect the samples, the saliva samples. So we continue to be able to have that available to screen for asymptomatic folks. And we have our community partners, One World and Charles Drew, that I know Mr. McMorris is on the call today, that can assist with following up if families get a positive diagnosis. But my plea this morning is that we get back in school and that we encourage everyone we know to evaluate their risk. And we respect that some people have more risk, and we understand that our children are just not doing well in the hybrid model, nor in the remote model. And so the connection is desperately needed. And so on Tuesday we begin that for our middle and elementary students, and then on the 16th for our high school students with 5 days per week. So we thank you. We're exactly at 10:20 where we wanted to be, and we'll be quiet and hope that you have a great rest of the morning.
Dr. Logan, thank you very much. Thank you, Scott, as well, for the data. We'll make sure that that's a part of our report that comes out next week, the trend lines in North Omaha. And we want to begin to transition as well. By the way, there are some questions that are coming in via Facebook and some of the other communications. We'll be working over the next couple of weeks to have a follow-up so there can be more interaction and answer some of those questions. Today is about providing those reports and the data so everybody has a common place of where the data is, what's happening with us right now. So thank you both. We want to take a moment now. Obviously, schools have been impacted. The other area that there's been a lot of impact is on the business side. And I know we have Ashley with us, Ashley Spivey, and BC Clark, both who focus on entrepreneurship and many other areas. But if we could bring in BC and Ashley, maybe I'll start with Ashley first, because I know she's on a really tight window working through as a small business owner. Ashley, you launched a business in the midst of COVID. I know it wasn't planned or intended that way, but you have been able to move forward with that anyway. Can you talk to nationally, they're talking about 40% of Black-owned businesses not making it through COVID. How have you been able to grow and be successful in this environment? Ashley Spivey?
Yeah, thank you so much, Willie. So I'm Ashley, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am co-owner with my life partner of Best Burger. And so we are a takeout restaurant that is currently located in Florence, but we will be moving to the Highlander Food Hub on March 1st, which we're really excited about. So thinking about this, right, like we did not plan to be in a pandemic. I think it was important for us as we were embarking in this space of uncertainty with the pandemic that we really looked at our business model. And so because we were already a takeout style restaurant, that was advantageous to what was coming out around PPE and how do you stay safe in this pandemic. So that lended us to be more successful in that way. And we also had to be really nimble and change our business model. So we had to be okay with recognizing we may have to run with a leaner staff. And we really need to think about what does our menu look like and scale back our menu to think about our cost of goods sold and what we're able to pull revenue from. And for us, we really wanted to make sure that we centered the safety of our staff. We employ people from the community. We're a family-owned restaurant. We have a lot of young people that work for us. And so leading with safety and support of who we're serving also made sure, I think just that intent, right, made sure that we were successful and the community saw that and supported. Another key space that as folks are navigating the pandemic as a business owner would be your marketing and digital marketing. Like video and visuals are key now. And so making sure how can you curate organic content on social media sites? How do you engage with folks online? And what does that look like is an important element as well. And so it's been hard, right? Like we are lucky to survive. And it's even a larger window of Black restaurants closing, like we are a restaurant in this time period. And nationally, we're seeing large numbers, about 60% close. And so I think if business owners really kind of focus on those things, thinking about your business model, being able to be nimble, where can you cut, where can't you cut, that marketing side. And also like what, you have to throw out the window. Like we had projections and it's like, this doesn't apply right now. Like we need a whole new set of projections. We may be doing this week to week and we have to be okay with that. And so just that flexibility and nimbleness, I think really helped us.
Ashley, congratulations. And we did see the news about you moving to Highlander. So congratulations and thank you for that. And we'll engage you more so you can share some of the insights that you've experienced as a business owner in this environment. So thank you so much. I know you got a busy schedule, but I appreciate you being here this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to hear from the other folks. I don't know if I'll be on stage or not, but I'm excited to hear from everyone else. And of course, I'm just going to say, come down and support, not all businesses. So come down to Best Burger, but come and support Black businesses, not just because it's a pandemic, not just because we're coming on Black History Month, but every day. Like we need support and consistency from our neighbors and community every day. So please make a schedule, make a little budget to make sure you have that disposable income to go out to eat and do your rounds of all of our businesses.
Ashley, thank you again. It's awesome to see a business, high quality, very successful, make it through the pandemic and even look to grow. With that, we have a couple of folks that they spend a considerable amount of time helping not only Black businesses, but businesses in North Omaha. I want to give them a few minutes. BC, you've been with us you and Jim talking about and really working on entrepreneurship, 300 plus businesses that you've worked with. Can you talk about what's happening from your perspective around a business growth and development in the midst of COVID?
Oh, yes. Well, good morning, everyone, and I hope you can hear me. I have a little frog in my throat this morning for some reason, but anyway, let's get going here. Well, for Nebraska Enterprise Fund over the past year, just to kind of talk about some of the things that we've been doing, actually all of our activities, and most of them were focused on Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs. And I have to tell you, we did have a solid year. There was so much going on. We did add some positions to our staff so that we could take care of a lot of things. Strategically, we were kind of watching things as they were developing. I have to tell you, back in March when the COVID first hit, looking at a lot of our businesses and even where they were at that moment, we immediately went into giving deferments for over 300 plus businesses. A lot of our minority businesses, which is, in LMI and underserved communities. But we right away started doing deferments for 3 and 4 months to just get them out of the chaos situations that they were in. The other things that were happening is that making sure that we were collaborating and communicating with other organizations to make sure that we could give and solutions to solve a lot of the problems that were happening. So I just want to talk over a few of the highlights and statistics in these short minutes. As I said, in early March, we gave deferments. We did fund about 14 Black businesses. Over 304,000 was spent, primarily with our Black-owned businesses. That gave 95 jobs were retained, 339 jobs were created. There were 7 additional startups that were funded during the pandemic. And as you know, in October, we did have our 6th annual From Startup to Success conference, which gave us some deeper insights on some of the needs and concerns of our business community out there, which allowed us to go, I would say, full speed ahead with some of the grants and things that we brought out. So over 1,700 one-on-one coaching sessions that were held with our Black entrepreneurs. We did extensive training throughout the community. Over 98 businesses were awarded $5,000 with our Get Back to Business grants. And during I would say the height of the last quarter, we provided over 40 businesses with coach. They were able to go to that training, get a laptop with that software on it, and have their businesses loaded. Now, the reason why those things were significant, because in our study of our Black businesses over the couple of years, we built their financial systems in place. So being able to provide our small businesses with those laptops, with the financial system, like QuickBooks, to be able to run their business and actually understand what was coming in, what was going out, was huge. And so it allowed them also to pivot, look at their businesses, assess where they were. With that information and education, they were able to begin to look at different products they need to add, the products that they could get, and begin to really see their revenue start to come in later on in 2020. Now, along with that, we also provided over 500 bags of PPEs to over 500 businesses. This was really significant because a lot of the businesses were running out of PPEs, a lot of the daycare, different restaurants and things. And so we had an open packing and a day of putting all these together in these bags and allowing individual businesses to come and pick those up. I think we have about 50 or so left, so if people are out there and they're wondering if they can still get one, please hook us up, call us, and we can make sure we can make that connection. Now, a lot of training happened over this past 9 months that really was talking. Yes.
If you can hear me,
yes.
We're getting most of it, but it's breaking up a bit as you're speaking. So we've been putting in the notes on some of the key things. I'm not sure, we had talked a little bit about bringing you back in towards the end about where we're going next, but if you could hit that last part, and then we're going to switch over to Myron and maybe bring you back in because it looks like the technology is interrupting a bit.
Okay, so do you know what part you didn't get? Well,
You can
perhaps
go.
I'll talk about the last.
Just if you could close out with what's available now, and then we'll switch over to Myron, and then we may try another connection with you at the end. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so let me go ahead and do that then. So again, as I stated, we do have some PPE bags that are available. If people want to let us know, we can give you that. We're also running some mental health series because of the COVID and all the things that are going on. So that's available, but everything is on our website at www.nevbiz.org. Also, a lot of the financial classes are going on there as well. So check out our website, check out our Facebook, and a lot of that information is there. And I'll be around, Willie, later if you need.
Okay, excellent. So we may bring you back in, BC. We will really appreciate the work that you and Jim are doing to really support Black businesses, North Omaha businesses, and others. Just tremendous report. Myron Pierce is another partner. Jonathan, if you could bring Myron in and kind of give an overview of what's happening with him, and then he'll give us an update.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Willie. And thank you, Brother Myron, for being here, brother. Thank you so much for the amazing work that you continue to do in our community as not only a pastor, but an entrepreneur in our community. Definitely a great example of putting feet to your faith and empowering people by helping to make entrepreneurship accessible for people at all levels of our community by identifying their gifts and their passions and their desires and showing people how to build a business out of that. I know you've had the opportunity to impact a lot of people in our community. And so, this is a great opportunity for you to share some of the work that you're doing and how it continues to impact our community moving forward.
Yeah, man. And it's such a privilege to be connected with what we're doing here with the transformation plan. I'll take a different slant. I can give you some stats, but let me tell you a story. There's a guy that connected with us probably about a year and a half ago, over 10 years in the penitentiary for pimping. He gets out, we start mentoring this young man, and lo and behold, he lands in our entrepreneurship program, Shift Omaha, which is a ministry of our church, Mission Church. He goes through our 16-week program, ends up launching a catering company, and now he is one of the directors of our program. And it's beautiful because what makes our contribution unique is that we're working with the people that are getting out of prison, getting out of gangs, maybe they're single moms. And it's been beautiful to see this guy's younger brother jumped in our program, man. And it was so beautiful to see when this guy, at the end of his graduation, he ended up starting a U-Haul type hauling type of business. And it was beautiful because this kid said, I'm so thankful that I get to hire myself. And that's what Shift is all about, helping people who are in that life come out the mud, jump over some hurdles, and decide that shifting their entrepreneurial mindset is worth it. And consequently, the amount of micro grants, the amount of businesses that have been started over the last year has been just a testament to the faithfulness of God. And one of the three enemies of entrepreneurship I'm learning here as we do work together is, number one, aggregation, where we're not pooling our resources. And so as these individuals are graduating from Shift, we're then assimilating them into business networking groups, right? Where they can build infrastructure when it comes to sales. The other one is circulation. We know this, that the dollar in communities like ours lasts probably only about 6 hours. And so to be able to trap that dollar, and like Ashley was saying, doing business with one another then becomes what's important. And then the other thing that we're attacking is affiliation. It's doing business with one another. I looked at the stats and when it comes to our disposable income, we're only spending 2% of our disposable income with one another. And so the beauty of Shift is we're attacking that, and we're saying, no, let's unite around doing business with one another. Let's refer one another. Let's build wealth together, and let's think long term. And it's been beautiful to see and to be able to contribute to the overall transformation plan.
Myron, thank you so much. We'll follow up. We're working on some things, obviously, with entrepreneurship and next level work, but we appreciate what you're doing specifically, directly to impact entrepreneurship, not only in North Omaha, but around the city. So we'll come back in a couple of weeks with you.
Yep.
Switch gears. So we've talked about health and housing, employment, entrepreneurship, the school system. We always have Chief Schmaderer. If Chief Schmaderer is ready to go, we want to do an update on violence prevention, safety in our community. Obviously, last year was an extremely busy year. I'll let you go into it, Chief. I know we're on a positive trend. 2020 threw all of us for a loop. But can you give us an update on violence prevention in the city of Omaha? Chief Todd Schmaderer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good morning. I want to make note that I'm here with the mayor and many of her cabinet members. We all came in for the event this morning. I want to make special note to my deputy chiefs here, Ken Kanger, and Deputy Chief Michelle Bay. So I chose 4 slides that I think really talk to 2020 and then talk about what we're going to do to move forward. And I'll just wait a moment, Willie, while we pull those slides up.
Yep. We're getting those switched over. If you can hear me, Chief.
I can hear you.
All right, we're getting those switched over for you. Right, Chief.
Okay, let's go to the second slide, please. There we go. So this is a 15-year chart. 15 years is significant because it's the start of Empowerment Network. It also shows a good trend line of where we started and where we are at now. And you can see that it's a productive trend line. We always capture our shootings because there's enough of a representative sample to be significant year in and year out. Sometimes murders, homicides will ebb and flow just based on one incident, but shootings provide us that good statistical baseline. As you can see, 2016, 17, 18, and 19 were kind of the golden era, if you will, and then 2020 occurred. And I like this 15-year chart because it shows a perspective. Even though we had a very drastic percentage increase, look where we are still from 15-year start 15 years ago. The orange represents citywide victims and the blue represents citywide incidents. The reason victims is higher, you could have one shooting incident where multiple people were shot. The goal for 2021 is to come right back down to the 16, 17, and 18 levels. And then 2023, we want to start dipping even below that. High expectations. Next slide. So this is just your homicide data, 15 years. As you can see, 2016, 17, 18, and 19. If you can keep shootings down, which is essentially an attempted murder, your homicides on average will start to trend downward. You always will have some aberrational pieces associated with that. For instance, in 2021, we've had 5 murders, but 2 of them were by a homeless, mentally ill female, and we're hoping that stops at just 2. So you can see the aberrational ebbs and flows when it comes to homicides. Next slide. And this is the 15-year clearance rates. I always talk about clearance rates when you talk about homicides because that's a direct correlation between the police department and the community. If there is not a good interface between the community and the police department, you're not going to solve a lot of homicides. And the reason is, when you're talking about drive-by shootings, when you're talking about gang and violence, very little forensic evidence is at play. You need to have a witness, and then you have to work it back down from there. Unlike your CSI scenes in which there's treasure troves of evidence, you don't necessarily see that on street crime. That's why these clearance rates will tell you so much about a relationship between the city and its police department. The orange line that you've got going through the middle is the national average for city our size. So it's always our goal to be way above that national average. And this is also an indicator that I use as chief. If I ever start to see this one dip, that's a cause for concern. So very pleased to see that number remain very high. And next slide. For 2021, we've got a few things in place. First of all, we just started our restorative justice program with our Human Rights and Relations Office, our City Prosecutor's Office, and the Police Department. Have endeavored to do the restorative justice program. It's being studied by UNO for the next 6 months. What that is if an officer makes an arrest, that offender could become eligible for restorative justice, in which they can have that wiped off their record with a mediation process and community service. That mediation process will involve the police department, the officer making the arrest, and the Human Rights and Relations Office. We feel on a micro scale with that individual arrestee, and on a macro scale, we can improve police community relations. This is a unique program. Omaha is one of the trend centers on this. And I talked about it the other day at a major city police chiefs association conference call similar to this. And the interest was high in seeing what our results are in 6 months. So you might see some major city spread if this is successful. For 2021, we want to get back to a proper mix, and that's 1/3 intervention, 1/3 prevention, and 1/3 enforcement. To be frank, in 2020, our gang units and some of our enforcement units were almost completely enforcement. That was what was left in our arsenal, if you will, in our toolbox in 2020. Intervention and prevention suffered greatly because we had to minimize human contact. And we simply cannot sustain low numbers with enforcement alone. If you don't have a proper mix, these numbers will go right back up. So it's imperative to take a look at 2020, put an asterisk around COVID, and when we exit COVID, we almost need to have a new fresh set of stats to see how well we're rebounding and going back to where we should be. We are participating very closely on this third point with the U-Turn partnership, and what is being developed right now is violence interceptors, violence interrupters. These are individuals that will focus on the very small set of individuals that are committing violence in our community, being very intentional with them, and keep almost like a college coach would recruit a star athlete, staying with them, and showing them positivity routinely has shown to be very successful in reduction of crime. And we feel Omaha is perfectly suited for this because of the trend line downward. This is another angle to take us further lower, but also the size of Omaha is the perfect size for this to work. Sometimes you lose it in a city the size of Chicago, and it's not impactful enough in a city the size of Lincoln. But Omaha is perfectly suited for the violence interrupters, and I can't wait to see how this turns out with you. I'm very happy, excited to see them up and functioning come the summer months with the premise that COVID has to end. And then the final piece is police reform. Any progressive, responsible police reform that we could be a trendsetter on, we will attempt to do so. We feel restorative justice is a piece on that. And we are looking at studying a few more angles along police reforms. And we'll be a player down in the legislature, helping to craft appropriate police reforms as we move through this legislative session. Willie, I know that was quick, and I know that I usually take questions and answers, but I'll hold that because for the segment that you'll have down the road. We appreciate the opportunity of the police department to always be a part of this, and looking forward to, how should I say this, getting this pandemic behind us, because there's some things we want to launch.
Chief, thank you. Really appreciate, I know we always like to try to do Q&A. We'll work on that with the follow-up session that we're planning for a couple weeks with all of the participants that are here today, as many that are possible. But thank you for that. And right behind that, we want to move now into, we have two presenters coming up, and then we'll hear from our elected officials. Two different perspectives, potentially, We want to hear from Precious McKesson and James Blackledge. One from Precious, and I know you, I appreciate you being here. Thank you, James, for being here as well. Precious, can you speak to us about, we've been talking about employment, talking about housing, a lot of different things, business, entrepreneurship. What's the perspective representing North Omaha Neighborhood Alliance? What are you hearing from the neighborhoods about where we are right now and even the hopes of where we go from here? Precious McKesson.
You're muted.
Oh. You're muted, Precious. There you go.
Sorry about that. I should be a pro at this by now. Sorry. Thank you so much for having me here today. You know, as we'll say, I am currently on vacation, but I am here because I believe in this process. So thank you. Nona, it was a rough year, you know, for all of us in 2020, but just let you know, Nona has been still at the forefront, really making sure that we're impacting our communities and our neighbors. We hosted several food drives this year. We've assisted the towers with food and toiletry, partnering with Eric Bergen. Dumpster days with Habitat for Humanity and the Empowerment Network and the pastors in the village. We've still taken assistance for referrals for our neighbors. And then this Christmas, we assisted Charles Drew with the toy drive that we had when we adopted also 9 families for Christmas. So
you muted yourself.
Sorry. My finger hit that. Sorry. So we're still here and we're still trying to really build on the neighborhoods the way that we should. Right now, you know, we're still working together to remain strong and to continue to grow and provide resources. One thing that we're looking at, and I've been talking to Alexis Bromley with One Omaha, is that more funding is needed in the alliances and in the neighborhoods. SONA and Nona, SONA, South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance, and Nona. SONA is led by Kimra Snipes. You know, we are still looking at how to build neighborhoods and get neighborhoods involved because we can't meet right now due to COVID. So a lot of ours is basically how do we help our neighbors without coming in contact to really make sure that everybody is safe, because we know a lot of our neighbors are high risk senior citizens. So we just want to still be there to be supportive. One thing that we would like to see is being more involved in the process at the public engagement for the development of demolishing houses or the master plans. Neighbors have concerns and they have issues. So we want to be at the forefront and be at the table when they're talking about the neighborhoods and talking about what's going on. This year, we're going to do something different with Nona. With YBI, Young Black and Influential, we're launching our first program called Readers with Nona and YBI, where teachers and students or parents will be able to apply for $15 to get from us to be able to order from the Scholastic school readers. We know that when those kids get those Scholastic readers, and we know times have been hard, they may not be able to get a certain book. So we want to be able to extend something so kids in the neighborhoods can have books to read at home. So they'll be able to apply for that, and then we'll send it to the school or to home, whichever one the parent wants us to do, or the teacher. Again, grants are open currently for the neighborhood associations. Those grants are open through the Omaha Community Foundation. They're open until March 1st. And those are for projects initiated by neighbors. And then we have all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, we have a lot going on right now. But again, we just want to continue to keep everybody engaged and keep everyone safe, and really making sure that we're sending out the message that is coming from the Empowerment Network and our elected officials from the city on down, to making sure how do we continue to spread the message of being safe and still being able to impact our neighborhoods.
Precious, thank you. And if we could show a slide while you're still there, I really appreciate your update from North Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. And we have been talking about this, a lot of collective work around this. But one of the things we noticed with the Douglas County Commission or Election Office, they provided some data that showed in the presidential election for the North Omaha zip codes, the highest number of the last 4 cycles, 21,403 voted this last season. And so really amazing work from you and others in the community to make sure that the voter turnout was high. And then the other thing that you and I were talking about as well is we see a fall off when it comes to city elections. And it's vitally important that we move forward and get everyone engaged, as you said. So we want to recognize the great work that you've done and all the partners around voting in the city. Not everyone is listed, but we try to identify many of those partners that are doing great work. But thank you, Precious, for being here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's reminded, April 6th, we do have a primary. And just be engaged. It's not always on the federal level. And that's something we have to work on to make sure that people understand this is year round being civically engaged when it comes to voting, not just during the presidential election, because things do impact us first here locally. So no matter what, we just need to be involved locally always.
Thank you, Precious. Just want to show a couple slides. Thank you so much, even as on vacation. Thank you. We want to bring in James Blackledge, and before we bring him in, a lot of what we're talking about now is how do we move forward? And we're going to hear from our elected officials here in just a few minutes, city, county, and state level. But one of the things that we've really worked on the last 6 months is how do we more deeply engage our CEO partners at different levels? And so this is a map before the transformation plan, before some of the NODP. We looked at what are the assets that are in our community, and we'll share this in the full report. But this is what this village zone looks like now. A lot of it has been led by foundations, nonprofit entities, small businesses, but there's over $600 million of development that has occurred in North Omaha. And then there's others that have been done by nonprofits and some by other entities. But the goal now is how do we build more wealth and ownership in the community, partnering with CEOs. And so we have James Blackledge. He's the CEO of Mutual of Omaha, and want to bring him in to speak from a CEO perspective, the work that's going on to improve North Omaha, to improve wealth and ownership in the African American community. James, from a CEO perspective, what's on the table?
Yeah, thank you, Willie. Thanks for allowing me to participate in this important event and effort. I really appreciate it. I think, you all know that I'm the CEO. I have the privilege of being the CEO of Mutual Omaha. And I think we have a long history of supporting diversity and inclusion even prior to my leadership, certainly. We are signatories of the National CEO Action Pledge on Diversity and Inclusion, and we're actively involved in the commitment to opportunity, diversity, and equity, the CODE program sponsored by the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce. My involvement with the Empowerment Network and Willie started 8 months ago, and I made a personal commitment to try to do more at that time and started a listening tour and reached out to Willie, and he was kind enough to involve me in this process. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. At Mutual of Omaha, we've made a number of commitments that we think are going to help North Omaha and maybe diversity and equity and inclusion more broadly. First and foremost, we committed to making an additional $1 million annual investment in our local programs that really are designed to address racial equity. So that was an important commitment that we made. We fulfilled that in 2020. We expect to do that again in 2021. So I'm excited about the additional investment that we're making. We also committed to doing training and development for our leaders and managers, and that's going well. I actually have my first inclusive and accountable leadership training program that all of our managers will go through. I'm actually going through that session on February 11th. And we committed to reviewing all of our policies, procedures, and programs, and this is probably where Willie really is trying to get to. First and foremost, on the talent acquisition side, we've also focused on our associate development programs. But supplier diversity is a real opportunity where we can help try to drive more wealth, development in North Omaha specifically, Willie, and that's, I think, what you're trying to get to. So I'll come back to that in just a second. We've also made a commitment to improving the diversity at all levels of our company, but made some progress on the board diversity. So we are committed to doing our part to support the big and bold commitments and really are excited about the effort going on led by the Empowerment Network. I'll give you a couple of examples of the impact that some of these programs are already having. On the talent acquisition side, in the month of December alone, we hired 55 people. So that's about 1% of our total associate population. And of those new hires, we had 71% female and 31% people of color. So, we're making progress there. How do we do that? It's really because we've created a diverse candidate slate expectation and a diverse interview panel process. And so those are a couple of things that we did as we reviewed our programs to try to improve upon diversity and inclusion. So specifically on North Omaha and supplier diversity, you may have met Vanessa Elkins. She's our VP of procurement. And Vanessa's helping us work with the National Minority Business Council, helping us work really to help businesses in North Omaha be able to be suppliers for a national firm like ours. We we invest, we spend $500 million a year outside of our company in buying things. As you can imagine, a lot of that's technology and other things like that. And certainly, the more we can grow through entrepreneurship, grow businesses in North Omaha specifically that could be our suppliers, that's good for everybody. We'd love to keep that money right here in the local economy. So that's a very quick rundown, Willie. I hope that's somewhat relevant to what you wanted, and happy to answer any questions.
Presenting, we have now about 15 CEOs that have committed to being a part of what's happening. And you have been consistent, deeply engaged, very active with this strategy with tangible, measurable goals. And so we appreciate that. We appreciate you helping to reach out to other CEOs and continue to build the table, and really based on what the community has asked for. And so, again, we thank you for being with us this morning. I don't know if there's any other closing comments that you want to make to the community that's here.
I just really appreciate everybody coming together to solve this important issue. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much again, James. And just so people know that we have other leaders from American National Bank, CHI Health, OPPD, and others, Creighton University, their CEOs have all committed to various components of the Big and Bold strategy. So we look forward to moving to the next level on that. Thank you, James. So let's switch gears. We've heard from community leaders, community-based organizations, faith leader. Jonathan, we want to start bringing in some of our elected officials with the goal of how do we accelerate the pace in North Omaha? How do we move forward in a much more strategic basis? So if we can bring in our elected officials, I believe we have State Senator Terrell, Justin Wayne, Chris Rodgers that are in, and we have the mayor's office as well. So I don't see Councilman Gray, but we'll go with Chris Rodgers from the county, and we'll go to the state, and then we'll come over to Mayor Stothert. So Chris Rodgers, Commissioner Rodgers, can you speak to, from the county perspective, maybe some top 2 or 3 accomplishments of where things are, but more importantly, where things going? Chris Rodgers. Can't hear you, Chris. Still can't hear you. Tell you what, if you want to try another connection, we'll come back to you, Pete Festersen. All right. Why don't we go ahead and move over? State Senator McKinney. Jonathan, you want to introduce Senator McKinney?
Yes, sir. So of course, this year we had last year with the election cycle, after many years of service to our community, Senator Ernie Chambers termed out and leaving behind a great legacy. It was exciting to see how the community really began to take ownership of the opportunity to provide leadership for our community. And in that was, of course, now Senator Terrell McKinney, the state senator for Legislative District 11, who ran a phenomenal, authentic campaign, and is now in Lincoln doing the work to represent the people here in our district. And we're excited about just his passion for community and all of the opportunities that he is hoping to be able to bring to North Omaha. And so, Senator McKinney, we are glad to have you joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. As you said, I'm recently elected to represent District 11 in the state legislature. Currently, I'm at a high school for a wrestling tournament. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on for my campaign and going into the legislature is trying to figure out ways to bring more economics to the district and try to improve the economic ecosystem in the district. One of the bills I introduced, which has a hearing on Monday, LB 450, which is an innovation hub act. The idea behind it is basically to create a small business resource center that's like a one-stop shop for individuals that would like to get in business, but also individuals that are in business, to try to connect them with individuals to help them grow and sustain their businesses in our community. Another bill that I think is very important, it was introduced last year by Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, which was LB 1060. This year is LB 451, and it's to end hair discrimination in the workplace. I think it's very important that, individuals from our community feel safe in the workplace and would like to be here. Because I think it's important that we do whatever we can to retain talent and attract talent to our community as best as possible. So I think that bill is big. We don't have a hearing date for it yet, but once it's set, I'll let everyone know. Another bill that I introduced was LB 480, which is to raise the minimum wage. And it would be raised on a gradual scale, not just a set number. So it'd be $1 a year for 10 years, and it would max out at 20. I think it's important that, we begin the conversation to talk about raising the minimum wage. Right now, the median income in District 11 is a little over $26,000. And if you are renting a home or owning a home and making that much money, housing is not affordable. So we have to make sure that everyone in the district has a livable wage to make sure our community is sustainable. And also so we can have more disposable income to sustain our businesses and also invest in businesses in our community. If we don't have the economic resources to be sustainable or to invest, we're going to continue to see the results that we've been seeing. And also, I'm going to always look at ways to try to create tax incentives to assist business, build infrastructure, and create jobs, because that's where the change is going to happen. All the nonprofits in the community that are doing stuff are doing some great work, but I think it's important that we start to really invest in people and make sure that we're building wealth in the community and not just other individuals coming in and building up things in our community, making sure that things are built up by the community and that the community has some type of ownership and power within the decisions going on in our community as well.
Thank you, Senator McKinney. Greatly appreciated. We want to stay right at the state level. I see Senator Justin Wayne is with us. He's been here as a presenter the last few years and really focusing a lot on economic development. But why don't we go to Senator Justin Wayne for an update on your priorities moving forward to help move and accelerate the pace in North Omaha. Senator Justin Wayne.
Thank you, and thank you all. Thank you, Willie, for having me. So I just want to talk a little bit quickly about some highlights of last year. Last year, we were able to, in the tax incentive package 1107, add economic redevelopment areas, which are some key areas in North Omaha, to provide additional incentives. Also last year with the general election, we were able to remove slavery from the Constitution, which was, thank you all to the community. While it's symbolic in nature, it does say something about Nebraska values, and it's time to erase the tentacles of slavery from our Constitution. So I do appreciate all those who voted to remove that. We also had on the ballot extremely blighted, which is a way to differentiate North Omaha and South Omaha from TIF projects. We know we have the big TIF project going on to Crossroads, and this is a way to provide additional incentives for North Omaha businesses and those who want to develop. So that was some major accomplishments last year that will benefit directly North Omaha. And this year we're going to keep doing with that. LB 26 removes tax from water. Believe it or not, we tax water, but if you go to the grocery store, you go to a quick shop and you buy a bottle of water, it isn't taxed. And so that directly affects, I believe, poor individuals. We're going to adopt an urban redevelopment Act, which provides incentives for North and South Omaha specifically in the metropolitan area. It'll be, what I'm trying to do is, if you look at 16th Street, 24th Street, 30th Street, we have some empty lots and we're trying to build infrastructure. So we're going to create tax incentives for individuals who want to build buildings so small businesses can lease and work together to grow North Omaha. I'm still always going to focus on historically underutilized businesses. I have that bill again, focusing on government contracts, making sure that we're at the table. I do want to mention that I have in Urban Affairs on Tuesday, I have two bills that pertain really to Omaha. One is the Police Oversight Committee that was introduced by Senator McKinney. And I do want to say for North Omaha and who's listening, Senator McKinney is an added asset. We've been working together and co-sponsoring a couple bills, and we strategize at least once a week on how we can develop North Omaha and look at laws that other people are trying to introduce and how we can attack amendments or negotiate things for North Omaha. So I'm really proud to have him down there with me. And so that was a great election for North Omaha. But so the Police Oversight Committee allows a 7-member committee to be appointed by the mayor. That's a great conversation that we're going to have on Tuesday. But I also have a bill that this year we're doing redistricting. And I was lucky enough to be selected to part of the redistricting committee to make sure we look at Omaha, particularly North and South Omaha, to make sure we have minority majority districts. But the bill that I introduced, LB 332, actually increases the city council size from 7 to 9. And part of it is that Omaha has grown. We've annexed a lot of people over the last 10 years. And since we're talking about redistricting, I want to have a conversation with the city and everybody else about how big city council districts should be. Right now, they're about 80,000, which is double the size of a legislative district. My bill would bring it down to about 60, 65,000, which I think is a little more manageable for city council members to deal with. It's nothing like Commissioner Rodgers on here, who has almost 100,000 in his district. But those are things that I think we need to be able, as elected officials, communicate with our districts easily and more effectively. And I think some smaller districts make that happen. So it'll add to the diversity of the city council, and it'll bring some good things. Lastly, I introduced a bill on LB 29 to add Juneteenth as a holiday. And this is just part of, again, removing the tentacles of slavery and celebrating a time that we finally felt like we were free. And so that'll be heard in the government committee. We don't have a date on that yet, but there's a lot of exciting things going on. I would tell you to please like my Facebook page, Senator Justin Wayne or Senator Terrell McKinney, because we try to share as much as we can on hearings. And due to COVID down there, as a chair of a committee, we are really inviting a lot more written testimony. So we're asking people not to show up and have long lines outside where we can spread the virus. We're asking people to give us written testimony. So please look at our Facebook pages, like our Facebook pages, because every week we send out upcoming hearings that are impacting North Omaha and South Omaha, and actually across the state. So I would tell you to make sure you like those, so we stay, the community stays well informed of what's going on down in the legislature, because it is, with COVID, fast-paced moving, and we want to make sure the community stays involved. So with that, Willie, again, I appreciate you having us on and making sure that we're connected. But it's an exciting time, and I think many of these economic development tools that whether myself or Senator McKinney are pushing are a new strategy that the legislature hasn't seen. And so because it's economic development, many more on the other side of the aisle are interested in doing something. And so we have an opportunity this year to really do something for North Omaha. I guess one more bill, and I'm sorry if I forgot, LB 688 or 866 we passed last year provides $8 million grants to North and South Omaha for affordable housing development. It was a huge deal. We got it set aside in the Appropriations Committee to get it done. Lincoln can also apply, but it's only for Omaha and Lincoln, and it's for really impoverished areas. So it's an opportunity to develop affordable housing that we got pushed through last year. So appreciate it again, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Senator Wayne, Senator McKinney. It's great to see the focus on economic development in North and South Omaha, especially North Omaha, that you're working on right now, but the impact that you're seeing and putting in. It's awesome to see the state level, and now we'll hear from county and the city, but we've made the most progress in North Omaha and around the city when the city, state, and county have been aligned. We really appreciate you guys being here, being a part of what's happening and the legislative focus on economic development. So thank you both, and we appreciate it. And by the way, we will have a follow-up meeting in a couple of weeks, so there can be more interaction and feedback from those that are listening and answering questions and those things. So we appreciate you both. Jonathan, can you bring in Commissioner Rodgers and Pete Festersen?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. All right.
All right. Chris, Commissioner Rodgers, City Councilman Pete Festersen, and I believe Councilman Ben Gray will be joining us here in just a second. We've heard from the state level. Now we'll hear from the county and the city council and hear from Mayor Gene Stothert. So Chris, talk to us about that economic development focus, health focus, moving North Omaha forward.
Yeah. Good morning, Willie, Jonathan, Pete, all my other peers. I want to thank them for their service. Also, this first time since, it seems like we've been in warp speed election-wise because of everything happening nationally. But being the first time in the crowd, I do want to take the opportunity to thank those who are from the district for their support for another 4 years, and I greatly appreciate that. In regards to where we are county-wise, Willie, I'll start with 2020. And it goes without saying that 2020 was all about COVID-19 and the coronavirus. 3 things that I think stand out more so in the district from that point of view is, one, the efforts that in combination with a lot of elected officials and a lot of people in the community that happened to try to really get ahead of this when it hit the ground and we were still trying to understand a lot about it. I think as a result of those earlier convenings and communications and coordination, you see some of the results here compared to the other parts of the country. We did have a spike in the district in regards to the Burmese community, those Latinos that worked in meat processing plants. But as we look at our data now, once we're able to get a grip on some things, those numbers of people confirmed with the test have kind of continued to decrease out of disproportionality. The interesting thing compared to other places around the country is that number of African Americans that had the virus never really hit over the point represented in the population. So I think the community has to take a lot of credit for that in working with the professionals and that line of communication for the efforts that went there, the still continued support for wearing masks, the continued push by the city council to have the mask mandate put in place. So that on the first piece in regards to the COVID-19 strain and just taking care of all that was one dominant piece. The second piece I'd like to go to is the CARES Act. And even though I agree with everybody in regards to the importance of private business and that economic development opportunities, there are a lot of nonprofits in our district that employ a lot of people. And through the CARES Act, we were able to not only provide support for COVID-related expenses, but particularly through a measure in the CARES Act, able to provide some stimulus to a lot of those nonprofits. And looking at the list, it was fortunate that a lot of nonprofits in the district were able to have that stimulus to try to help them survive and keep some of those jobs that are there in the district. And lastly, from 2020 in regards to COVID-related items was the effort that the Board of Health made to declare racism a public health crisis. The events that happened along the summer steered by George Floyd kind of put that in motion to happen right then, but it actually is some work that we have been working on for the past year. And those events put that into play and made it relevant to put there to pass and to discuss. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's important because public health is now where public safety was at 9/11. This coronavirus COVID-19 experience is going to be one that a generation won't forget. And I think we all saw some of the interconnectedness that happens with public health, whether it's with housing, whether you saw with education and how that exposed some of the inequities in broadband. You saw how the importance of health and your surrounding public health can affect the economy. And you saw it play out in a whole lot of other interconnected ways. And that's the case that public health has been making for the last couple of years, having a health in all approach. And at the foot of all of that, we saw the inequities in the system. So by the Board of Health declaring it a crisis, it has put it on the level of being noticed in public policy realms, business realms, that to get at the core of a lot of the systemic stuff, public health has been there, public health is going to be there. And if you solve these, you solve a lot of the other social determinants that are at the underpinning of that. So that's what the important 3 things that I thought that were there for 2020. But again, in 2021, COVID and the coronavirus is still going to have a dominant role, whether it's trying to make sure that vaccines are distributed equitably, make sure we still have continued systems in place for testing to be able to identify these new strains that are popping up and to make sure that our surveillance infrastructure is up to par. There's going to, we're making a push right now in the legislature to try to have more local control given to public health departments where we think it should be. We hope that that effort is successful. But in addition to public health, we've continued to do the work that we've done on juvenile justice. It hasn't had a high profile because of COVID, but we've continued to build that infrastructure and look forward to continuing progress there to reduce those numbers and build some infrastructure up to try to provide more services up front and not have to have kids get in the system to get services. So that's who we are as a county.
Okay. Thank you again, Commissioner Rodgers, for your leadership through, especially from the Board of Health and Commissioner level on the COVID situation and issues and pandemic. And we look forward to working with you. You've said for a number of years that health should be the umbrella of everything, including the social determinants, and bringing that. So we really appreciate the leadership that you've done there. Thank you for that, Commissioner Rodgers. We want to move now to the city level. City Councilman Pete Festersen represents not only Vincent and Florence, but other portions of North Omaha. Wanted to give him an opportunity from a city council perspective. What are the priorities moving forward from a city council level?
Yeah, thanks, Willie, and good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. I think this is time well spent, as always. I've been privileged to support this program from the city level, but also from the CHI Health perspective, too. So I want to make sure you know that CHI Health remains committed to this work as well. And as Willie knows, we're working on a project that we think can have some direct investment in North Omaha here shortly, and that work continues. From the city council level, just a few things I'll mention. And I've talked with Willie about this frequently, but I want this group to think about it as well. Given what we experienced this summer, the city council established some forums at City Hall that were safe for folks to come down and express their frustrations and express their interests on issues of concern to them. And we had a lot of new voices to that mix, a lot of young voices to that mix, which were great. Talking about poverty and racism and mental health and police reform. And I think we all need to think about ways to embrace those voices going forward, because they aren't typically involved in this format or aren't always involved in the Empowerment Network's discussions. So I think that's a challenge for us going forward, how to harness that energy and work with them to really address those issues. Three things maybe I'd mention that I am working on as we speak, and I think are big items in 2021 that we all have interest in. One, affordable housing. We have just seen a study performed by the Sherwood Foundation that suggests we're about 80,000 units short in this community of affordable housing needs. And unless we do something about that, it will get worse in coming years. And I think there's several recommendations out of the report that are worth pursuing and that we are pursuing. The City Council's Planning Committee meeting is already analyzing our TIF policies around the city. There is some state legislation involved on this issue I think we can support that can better support more affordable housing opportunities throughout the city and definitely in North Omaha. There is also some discussion of creating funds that could help support current renovation stock or current stock and helping to renovate that stock. There's also discussion of a fund that could help develop new stock throughout the community and definitely in North Omaha. I think that'd be a combination of city, county, state, and philanthropy for sure, but I think there is a lot of interest around that topic. And frankly, I think it's a way for us to diversify and desegregate our community going forward as well. And resembles a lot of what Willie's talked about in the past in terms of the Rebuild North Omaha Fund. I think a lot of synergies could be accomplished with that idea too. The second topic I'd mention is mental health. This is one I've been working on for some time, but I think needs to be a priority for all of us. I think everyone knows this is a huge impact on everything we're doing. City leaders know it, county knows it, philanthropy knows it, providers know it, school superintendents, the police chief is on board with this idea. These are all things we got to come together and work on to develop a citywide or community-wide strategy on this issue. We've made some great improvements with a new unit in the police department. The Med Center has done new stabilization centers. CHI Health is working on a children and families center. So we have some building blocks in place, but I think city funds should most definitely be involved in this issue. And we attempted to do that this summer, and I think should venture to do that again to support that effort going forward in a unified way. The last thing I'd mention, and then I'll yield the floor to our other speakers, is public transit and alternative transit, I think, is a big issue for us in 2021, and definitely part of the Empowerment Network's plan of work. So as you know, city voters approved a bond issue and that work is being accelerated as we speak, and that will benefit North Omaha directly. But I do think the next phase of that work has to be public transit and alternative transit and spreading that throughout the city. We do, of course, have the new orbit system up and running, but we need to extend that to other parts of the city and to extend additional opportunities to North Omaha in particular. And I think a mechanism that would really help with that was actually introduced by Senator Wayne, would allow our Metro board and Metro system to progress with that issue and have a mechanism to fund it. And that's something I'm very interested in supporting in 2021.
Thank you, City Councilman Festersen, and I appreciate long-term partnership on a number of the initiatives that you've talked about, affordable housing, definitely mental health, and also working together collectively to create funding that would support many of these initiatives, specifically addressing poverty, employment, transit, and other areas in North Omaha. So thank you for your leadership. I know we are working on getting Councilman Gray in, and we appreciate our elected officials being here. I believe we have Mayor Jean Stothert that is at her office. So why don't we switch gears and we'll move over. Thank you, Mayor Stothert, for being a part of the meeting all morning. Ever since you've been in office, you've been at every one of the State of North Omaha meetings, so we appreciate that. Can you give us a perspective from the city and your leadership of where things are headed and how we can accelerate the pace of growth in North Omaha? Mayor Jean Stothert.
Sure. Good morning, Willie. Good morning, everybody. I stood up because I want you to be able to better see the staff that's behind me. We're down at City Hall this morning, and we have a lot of our department directors and staff that are here this morning to take part in this important effort. So I'm happy to be back with you. This is the 8th year that I've reported on our work and our progress. As I said, the staff and department directors are here with us this morning, and thank you for letting us be part of this. Last year, however, I started my report saying that 2020 was going to be a year of progress and a year of collaboration. And COVID has certainly changed the tools we use to collaborate, but not our drive or our motivation. COVID has also identified new important community priorities, and we can be proud of our progress and our partnerships that we've developed. Building great partnerships is the way we get things done in Omaha. And I am proud to be participating with the Transformation 2025 partners. Willie asked for a short list of 2020 accomplishments. First, one of the most significant accomplishments in 2020 was our proposal for a long-term pavement maintenance and rehabilitation program and voter approval of a $200 million bond issue. And I really want to thank the voters of Omaha who voted for this in May during the middle of a pandemic. This bond issue was the result of years and years of work. We assembled a team of national experts to help us identify why our roads looked the way they did, what we needed to do to fix them, how much it would cost, and then, of course, how we were going to pay for it. Our infrastructure must match our city's potential to create an environment for growth and development. With the bond issue passing, the additional funds, which now are an additional $40 million a year, additional to the money we already had, will pay for road rehabilitation, reconstruction, new construction projects, and also unimproved streets. In 2020, we completed nearly 200 lane miles or resurfacing and concrete replacement, more than any other year in recent history. So with the bond issue passing just in May of 2020, we were able to get busy this summer right away and get a lot more projects done than we had previously. In District 2, we completed 24 projects in 2020, valued at over $5 million. Our commitment to high-quality street improvements is a critical component to attracting new businesses, residents, and customers. Second, affordable housing. Numerous housing developments are in progress or beginning soon. Along the North 30th Street corridor, Nobility Point, the Overlook, and Davis Ridge. These projects will add more than 200 new housing options, totaling of around $54 million in investment. Working with Omaha Housing Authority, 75 North, Purpose-Built Communities, the Sherwood Foundation, and many others, we are also developing Kennedy Square. This mixed income housing development will revive an important commercial corridor, enhance public safety, and provide services to families. When complete in 2023, Kennedy Square will add another 130 housing units, currently valued at $36 million. These projects continue our commitment to the North 30th Street corridor. Next, the 24th Street Business Improvement District is now 1 year old. The BIDs empower citizens to preserve and enhance their communities by developing projects and services that address the needs of that district. This year, we are partnering with the BID to fund a streetscape plan along the 24th Street BID boundaries. This is a great step to attract new businesses and customers to this district. The best ideas and plans always come from working together. So I really want to thank Lavanya Goodwin and the BID board members for all of their work. The future of North 24th Street will absolutely benefit from the BID. I also wanted to include Miller Park in our 2020 achievements and future plans. With philanthropic support, we have finished a new trail system through the park, opened a dog park and a splash ground, and built a performance pavilion. More great additions to Miller Park have been planned, and we'll continue working on those. Now let's move on to 2021. This week, we presented our 2021 pandemic recovery priorities. A successful restart of our economy, support for our citizens and businesses, and careful management of city finances and services will be critical as we recover from the pandemic. This plan includes priority areas that align with the goals that I have set for my administration. First, public safety. Second, managing the city budget. Third, support economic growth and job creation. And fourth, excellent customer service. The detailed plan is now on the homepage of the city website, cityofomaha.org, and it was released at a news conference this past week. The priority list identifies 10 specific strategies, ranging from public health initiatives to city finance commitments. We will distribute additional funds for rent and utility assistance. We will expand community service funding and neighborhood grants for pandemic recovery projects. We will increase 2021 community service funding for job training and work readiness programs. We will restore Omaha's tourism industry and hospitality sector jobs. We will use my COVID Community Advisory Board to identify additional 2021 recovery needs and strategies. We will allocate the 2020 budget surplus to city cash reserves for future emergency preparedness. We will introduce the City of Omaha's new mobile app that should be live around in February this year, next month, or this coming month, adding new tools for communication and for public to receive information. We will begin a 2021 police recruit class in April. We will support the extension of the mask ordinance, and we will promote and encourage COVID vaccinations. These steps will help individuals, families, businesses, and nonprofits and developers. Everyone working together on the transformation plan will benefit from our successful recovery. 2021 offers a lot of challenges, but also a lot of great potential, and we are ready. So thank you to Willie and to everybody here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to give you all an update.
Thank you, Mayor Stothert, for the update on 2020 and where things are headed for 21. We greatly appreciate it, and look forward to reaching out to you again. We want to have an interactive session as well, where some more Q&A from the community can be incorporated. Thank you again. Thank you for having your staff participate today. We greatly appreciate it. Want to take a moment, and we've heard from, again, the community. We've heard about health, housing, employment, business, entrepreneurship, heard from CEOs, many of our elected officials. There's a few more very critical updates on moving forward. So in a few minutes, we'll hear from about health. We'll hear more about how do we create more jobs in North Omaha with a success story that we need to hear more about with Northend Teleservices. And then we want to hear about Malcolm X Foundation, the Great Plains Black History Museum, and then we'll close out again with where do we go from here. So again, we want to talk about, let's jump over to Northend Teleservices. If we can bring in Chris and Keisha. I want to give them an opportunity. 5 years ago, I believe, I think it's your 5-year anniversary, with the CEO, Carmen Tapio. Can you give us an update on where things are with Northend quickly and where they're headed? So with that, maybe Keisha Thomas.
Yes. So, hi, Willie. Appreciate the help, the opportunity to discuss things with you and everyone else on this call. I'm Keisha Thomas, the Director of Human Resources for Northend Teleservices, and we are a very proud African-American owned, woman-owned business in the heart of Northeast Omaha, just off of 24th and Hamilton. Sorry, my lights are on a timer. We recently celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and by leveraging the talent pool in our community, we've grown to 425 employees today.
Thank you, Keisha, and thank you, Willie, for speaking. I'm Northend Teleservices. Over the past quarter, our company has grown by 130% in 2020. Engaging with the state of Nebraska. So we truly want to thank them for their commitment to utilizing minority suppliers and their role in helping to create jobs and change lives in Northeast Omaha. In the last year alone, we've been honored with the Urban League of Nebraska's Diversity and Inclusion Champion Award, a Business Excellence Award from the Greater Omaha Chamber for Innovation, becoming the largest African-American owned business in the state of Nebraska based on employees. We are also proud to have been number 677 on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing privately held companies in America. And while we appreciate those honors, the real world work comes from our people. We do not just want to talk about how we help them, but what we actually provide to them and what opportunities are afforded to our employees. I think you're on mute, Keisha.
There we go. We provide full-time employment, and literally only 2 members of our staff are part-time. Percentage of employees' health benefits remain completely free, or the cost is significantly contributed to by net. We have dental, vision, long-term and short-term disability insurance, as well as life insurance, and that's 100% paid by net. 10 paid holidays, and employees accrue PTO. We have a registered apprenticeship and tuition assistance. And we partner with the Omaha Chamber's GROW program and provide an on-site, well, now it's virtual, navigator for their benefit. Pre-COVID, we provided transportation services as well. And now with the pandemic, we've moved all of our employees home. And there's going to be more to come as we continue to grow our business and capacity. Literally in the last 3 months of 2020 to present, we've promoted 35 employees. And in these challenging times, we have grown, and in days, we're able to safely and quickly, and I mean quickly, move our employees home. And then while many employees or many minorities are not in jobs that really enable them to work from home, ours does. So our employees are really thriving, and we do look forward to a time when we can go back on premise, but we'll stay working from home as an ongoing benefit and business strategy. We have a diverse group of employees, and we're cradled in a culture of inclusivity. As a business, we've provided a good wage and a full range of benefits, as I've already laid out, and we cheerfully meet our employees where they are, and we help them create a vision for their future and for their lives while they're with us. We're in it for the long haul. I was the first employee hired by Net. I'm still here and very pleased to be a part of our thriving little family.
Thank you, Keisha. I was employee number 2. We are not just diverse and inclusive in our hiring. We are committed to the community, partners, and our clients. We provide services to companies in our community, our state, and across the world.
At the end of December, our annualized economic impact in this community was $85.9 million. That's literally enough to stack $100 bills and reach the top of Mutual's Omaha, on the Omaha Tower in Midtown. We're committed to continuing to elevate people in our community by enabling economic independence, which brings about more life choices and upward mobility. We're proud to be a part of Northeast Omaha, and we'll continue to do our part as we all work together to strengthen and revitalize our community.
Our CEO, Carmen Tapio, who is in attendance with a number of the other leaders from our organization, continues to support the community by mentoring individuals, businesses, support economic development efforts at multiple levels, and continued leadership to bring about change through diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, through her participation in public, private, nonprofit boards and advisory committees she serves on. We need to encourage, mentor, and help each other to reach out, be inclusive, and take accountability to grow North Omaha. The Empowerment Network has been a key on providing me numbers over the past decade. We need to keep pushing to move the needle, and NET is looking forward to continuing to be a partner in that endeavor. We will not stop.
And we want to thank you, Willie, and the Empowerment Network for all the great work that you're doing in the community. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Chris. I just want to make sure I heard that number correctly, Keisha. 5-year anniversary, you've grown from you and Chris and Carmen to how many employees now?
425.
Okay, I thought I heard that correctly.
Yes, you did. It was an amazing feat.
Yeah, congratulations, but it's a great example, with a strong leader, great team, right there on North 24th Street. It is possible to grow a strong, sustainable business. So congratulations to your team. And that's really what we're talking about moving forward. Full benefits, wages, employment, entrepreneurship, creating jobs in the community. We now need to move forward with all of the different groups that we're talking about, from the community side, economic development, elected officials, foundations, funders, investors, CEOs, to create and replicate the great success that you're having. So congratulations to you and also to Carmen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for being here. I think we have Councilman Ben Gray is here. If we can bring Councilman Gray in, and then we'll come over to some of our presenters on specifically moving forward as a community. And so, Councilman Gray, can you hear me? All right, I can see you out there, but I can't hear you on the line. Okay. You may need to exit and then come back in, Councilman Gray. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, we don't see you there. So we'll come back to you. Hang on in there if you are still connected. And we've been talking quite a bit about health, but I believe we have Dr. LeGrand that is on, representing CEO Smith. So let's talk a little bit about specifically, where do we go from here on health, and what are specifically, I think you're going to talk to us about the vaccination and vaccine.
Yes, good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. I am hoping that my screen might be being shared. If not, I can still talk to it and just give you some information. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Barney, for allowing me a little time. I send greetings on behalf of CEO Danette Smith, who, as you probably can understand, we were in a lot of meetings, including on the weekend, and she had a meeting that was going fairly long and was unable to attend. But I am glad to be here and to be a part of the program today. And I just wanted to provide a few updates with, if I could, with regard to COVID overall. So hospitalizations are down to about 341 active hospitalizations. Some of you may be aware that we moved into the green phase as a state as of yesterday. So the governor instituted the green phase, and we've relaxed some restrictions. However, we do encourage everyone to remember that they should not rest on their laurels, and we still must continue those NPIs, those non-pharmaceutical interventions, which are masking, making sure that you are washing hands, staying socially distant, not going out if you can to a lot of places, and being mindful of trying to just stay around those that you live with in your home. We understand people are working, and socialization is important, but we still have to be very vigilant in that. We do have 189,597 positive cases of COVID right now that have been identified in the state. We have 919,385 folks that have been tested. This is a key point as well. Testing is still very critical to us, and especially in our community. We have to continue to get testing. I know that people are happy, and we are very excited that the vaccine is here, but it is still a slow go. We still are working to get through all of our phases, get those that are needing to be vaccinated first vaccinated. It's hard to determine those priority groups. We listen to ACIP and CDC, and it's a difficult thing that we have to do, but we do have to continue to get tested so that we can be mindful of our status. We do have 1,921 folks that have passed away, unfortunately, in our state. And so we are mindful that we want to minimize as much as we can any more contributions to that number. And we have 134,000 folks that have recovered, 134,492 to be exact, that are in the recovered and identified as recovered. So that's some positive news. We are, looking on the path forward, as Mr. Barney has said, and we're excited to talk a bit about the vaccine. And so if you don't know, the website is vaccinate.ne.gov. Again, that is vaccinate.ne.gov. You can go straight there, and that's where the vaccination portal is. If you want to find out more information, and I'm hoping that I am sharing my screen with you, you can go to the DHHS website. This is on our coronavirus disease, our COVID-19 webpage. I wanted to point a couple of things out just here. Subscribe for updates. Anyone can subscribe to updates to our COVID-19 page. That means anything that's on this page or auxiliary pages, you will receive updates when we do major updates. You won't get inundated if there's small updates, but there is a way for you to subscribe to receive those updates. And then we've updated a few things. We have the COVID information line. This number has changed. The landline has, or the local line rather, has changed. The toll-free number has stayed the same, but did want to point out that we've updated some information. We've had to expand capacity and bring our call center internally, and wanted to make sure we pointed that out. But the call center is open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If people have issues with accessibility, technology, they don't have internet access, they can call this line, and those folks can help them to register for the portal. As I scroll down, if you click on vaccine information, it will take you to our vaccine information page. And there's a lot of information that has been updated within the last couple of days. There's a brief video to show you how to get through the portal and registration process. There are FAQs, instructions, user guide, a number of things. And then you can click right here to go to that portal, which is vaccinate.ne.gov. Quick points about vaccinations. 254,000 folks have been vaccinated in our state at this point. We have 170,429 vaccinations that have been administered. 127,477 folks have received their first dose. 42,952 have received second dose. There are a number of folks still working very hard. We only have 2.9% of the population vaccinated. So that's why it's still important to keep those NPIs in place, the masking, washing your hands, et cetera. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are happy that as of yesterday evening, we found out that over 70,000 people have already registered for this portal. And so we want to make sure that everyone knows about the portal. It's not a sense that a situation that you're getting in line, if you will. You are getting in a pool, and selections are randomized, and that's explained a little bit more on this website. But we wanted to make sure, we've had some people contact us and say, I don't want to take someone else's place in line, so should I register now? Absolutely, you can register now. But if you don't register for another couple of weeks or a few days because you're busy, will you lose a place in line? No, you won't lose a place in line. It's a pool, it's randomized. There's coding in the background, and I'm not a tech person, but that coding is going to help to identify your county. And when your vaccination phase comes up, it'll have information about you and what county you live in. You will get a notification. I did it the other night. It only took me a few minutes. It was very easy and fairly intuitive. We're continuing. You may see some additional language here. We're continuing to work on getting additional translations up on this site so that we can make sure that people are getting access to vaccination and getting the most up-to-date information as to when that vaccination phase is coming to their particular area. And
Good.
so we just are really happy that you all have let us take a little time today to share what's going on with vaccination, what's going on in the state. We're working very diligently and partnering with folks that are definitely looking to enhance education and information within the community, and especially within the Black community. We're excited to do some things for Black History Month in the next several weeks. So I want to say again, thank you so much for allowing me a few moments to share that with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. LeGrand. And I see a couple of questions being posted out. We'll make sure we get those questions to you as far as getting connected, especially on the vaccination. Thank you for all your work, and we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much.
So we greatly appreciate those that have been staying with us, and there's quite a few in the audience that are, and there's two more critical pieces that we want to make sure that are presented to the community. As we have been listening to the community and identifying priorities moving forward, two of the things that keep rising to the top are the Malcolm X Foundation and the Great Plains Black History Museum. And so I believe we have JoAnna Ejike that's with us. She's a board member with the Malcolm X Foundation. And I see Eric Ewing is joining us as well. And I see Councilman Gray, but I'm not sure if he's in there. But let's go in and hear more about moving forward as a community. There's a vision for Malcolm X. There's a vision for Great Plains. We'll start with JoAnna. Talk to us about where things are with the Malcolm X Foundation and how we as a community can support what's going on.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Willie, for inviting me to participate. Yes, we do have a lot of things moving and shaking at the Malcolm X Foundation, and I am current standing vice president of the board. And I'm going to share my screen here so you all can see all the wonderful things that we have going on. So if you're not familiar, we are at 3448 Evans Street. And our intention is really here to make sure that people understand that we are actually an international historic destination. And we want not only our local community to know that, but the people that might visit in order for us to share all the great things that we're doing here in Omaha. We are actually and still in the process, but almost complete with our strategic planning, which we were able to relaunch during the pandemic. And so I just wanted to make sure I shared a few of our visions and upcoming goals. So just a historical overview. We are a 17-acre oasis in the heart of North Omaha, grown from the legacy of our founder, Rowena Moore, in 1971, and there's a photo of her standing next to the historical marker. We are officially registered with the Nebraska Historical Society, and we have had 3 board presidents since our founding in 1971. Our newly acclaimed vision moving forward is that we aim to educate with a focus on African diaspora and providing liberation through incubation of grassroots transformative programming. We envision an empowered community of self and family thriving in equity, leading as a creative common ground for Afro-American centered, action-oriented activism and leadership development. Moving forward as a part of the strategic planning process, we are in our final phase of kind of some assessment and surveying. And so we would love for the community to participate in that. If you're interested in participating in that survey, I would love for you to email me at JoAnna, JoAnna, at malcolmxfoundation.org. All right, moving forward here, we are also changing our mission to the following. The Malcolm X Memorial Foundation is focused on preserving the human rights legacy of Malcolm X, also known as El Haj Malik al-Shabazz, while prioritizing self-reliance and determination through radical movement building. So there are some listed core values that we have. Civic engagement is at the top of the list, direct action into the community, economic empowerment, scholarship, service, and liberation of the human spirit. So I just want to share some of our structural things. We have some committee opportunities right now. These are all the listed committees that are standing, one being the development committee, because that is our current priority. We have a major fundraising goal, which I'll share later. We also have an events committee, and one of the main events that we want to prioritize moving forward, and every year, is the birth of Malcolm X here in Omaha, Nebraska on May 19th. So every year we want to create a committee for that. And general communications and outreach, Also, our standing radio station, we are in progress of hiring someone to direct that right now, and programs in education overall. And here's a photo here, an aerial view of what the grounds currently look like. All right, just a couple more slides. Again, here is our kind of major goal, fundraising goal number of $650,000. We are already in the process of fundraising. We have raised $50,000 with an opportunity to match up to $35,000 by the end of April. And all of these funds will go towards site development and maintenance, operational expenses, and a few accessibility updates to our site. The two major projects in our first phase of development will be a visitor's cottage and groundskeeper apartment. And I'll share some numbers there for potential construction and salary for a groundskeeper. Again, it's 17 acres. And up until this point, all of the volunteer board members were responsible for maintaining that grounds, but we want to move forward and get our board members in strategic places. And so we need to hire someone to manage the grounds, especially. And this visitor's cottage will also serve as an opportunity for people who are traveling to kind of treat it sort of like an Airbnb opportunity. And then also here we have the Malcolm X home brick landing space that we have some renderings here we've shared, where we want to make sure we outline the home where Malcolm X's home once stood, offer some wayfinding signage and accessibility via the main parking lot entrance. And briefly here, some program updates. These are our priority programs right now. We started and a curriculum through the Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services here recently. And so we're wrapping that process up. And our goal here through the education portion is to make sure that curriculum is in the hands of a lot of educators across the state to make sure they prioritize what they are teaching about our legend of Malcolm X. Following then, we have the lecture series, which is hosted virtually, the Malcolm X birthday celebration, which I mentioned. We are continuing to do outdoor rentals and community collaborations. And we will also entertain moving forward a White Allies training to span our programming throughout the year. So that is all for my presentation. I look forward to the opportunity to share questions in a future dialogue. We have a lot of work that we want to do as far as training the local community to really be activated. Thank you.
Yeah. JoAnna, thank you so much for spending the whole morning with us, investing that time. Thank you to Leo and as well. I really want to put emphasis around what you showed. There's been a vision for Malcolm X. There's a redevelopment vision. You put a number to it. You're looking to raise $650,000 for that first phase. And it would be awesome to see many of the partners that are with us this morning, the community, to get behind that vision and see what we can do. This is an international opportunity that we really need to maximize. And I appreciate the vision, appreciate the strategic plan that's been developed. And we as a community want to do what we can, everything we can to support what's happening at Malcolm X. Jonathan, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on it, but thank you, JoAnna. And then also, Jonathan, if you could introduce Eric, that would be.
JoAnna, can you share your contact information again with everyone? We had a few people that were in the chat that missed that, that are interested in getting some additional information about how they can support.
Yep, it's kind of small here, but I'll just spell it out here. My email is JoAnna, JoAnna, at Malcolm X Foundation. Make sure you add that extra L in Malcolm, MALCOLM, xfoundation.org.
All right, thank you very much. Some exciting things that are taking place there at the Malcolm X Foundation, and really excited about those plans developing and seeing that bloom and blossom, and all of the people all around the globe that are going to continue to benefit from his legacy. Thank you so much for the work that you and the team are doing. And there's also some exciting history things that are taking place down at the Great Plains Black History Museum. Mr. History Omaha, Eric Ewing, is joining us on the line today, and just the ongoing commitment and dedication that he has demonstrated to compiling the history of our community is phenomenal. And there are some amazing things that are happening at the Great Plains Black History Museum right now, but also some great things that are coming down the pipe. And so, Eric, if you can come on the line and just kind of share what's going on at the Great Plains Black History Museum and some of the priorities that you all have moving forward.
Hey, Jonathan, well, thank you and Willie and the Empowerment Network for having us here. now you kind of put the expectation on me, calling me Mr. History. I'm I'm still learning and growing with everyone else. But I do want to thank everyone for being here today. And I just want to kind of give an update on what we accomplished last year and where we're looking to go forward from this year. Of course, we know the pandemic occurred, and that caused some difficulties for some organizations. But I would like to say we were able to still accomplish pretty much everything that we had set out for 2020. And one of those things was to write a new strategic plan. And our strategic plan will receive its approval hopefully this February at our next board meeting. But one thing that did come out of it was we did develop a new mission statement, and I'll share that with everyone. Our new mission statement is to preserve, educate, and exhibit the contributions and achievements of African Americans with an emphasis on the Great Plains region, and to provide a space to learn, explore, reflect, and remind us of our history. So that is our new mission statement. And although it says with the emphasis on the Great Plains region, we are focusing on that area, but we will also display exhibits outside of the Great Plains region as well. And as some of you that may have visited the museum may have noticed. Back last year in March, we initially closed our doors to face-to-face visitors because of the pandemic. And I knew that with closing the doors, it might cause a problem to where we potentially might not be able to reopen our doors. So we quickly took advantage of this environment that we're in now, the virtual world. I had been working the last couple of years with an organization called McMorris, which works with schools throughout the United States, and had been providing virtual tours for their organizations. So I reached out and I asked them, with everything that was going on, I knew that they were going to need to find a way to reach students and need more people to work with those students. So I then started providing virtual tours for students throughout the United States. We were fortunate enough last year to reach over 39 different states with virtual tours. We reached students as far as Hawaii and Alaska on the West Coast, and as far as Rhode Island and Florida on the East Coast. And we also had some folks tune in from Canada, from the UK, and from Portugal as well. We were able to reach 5,993 visitors, whether face-to-face or in the virtual world, either through virtual tours or presentations in which we provided. And I think it had a really large impact because I've already gotten demands from, I'm going to be providing a tour here in February to a school in Alaska. The whole school, the librarian reached out to me and wants us to provide a virtual tour to the students there. And then I also have a virtual event. Fortunately, had a principal from a school in an Indianapolis visit here back last fall, and he enjoyed what he saw. So he's reached out to me to have me provide virtual tours to, I believe it's going to be his sixth to eighth grade students. So although we don't have as much foot traffic as we'd like, we are still reaching folks through the virtual environment. And then also, unfortunately, with the George Floyd incident, that caused people to want to become a little bit more educated. So we've been able to reach various organizations throughout Omaha and throughout the U.S. To give virtual tours and presentations as well. And this is a tool that we'll continue to use even when we do go back to some sense of the old normal, because I think we're able to be a larger impact on more people and better serve more people with us having the ability to do that. We are open for face-to-face tours, but they're by appointment only. They can go to our website, which is gpblackhistorymuseum.org, to schedule a virtual tour. To schedule a face-to-face tour. And We've provided COVID-friendly environment. Temperatures are taking at the door. We have two hand sanitizers, touchless hand sanitizers available. We have our social distancing markers. We have cleaning services that cleans the facilities twice a week. So we are being conscious of that, and masks, of course, are required. Some of the upcoming exhibits for 2021, we're looking to we have a permanent exhibit called Hate and Hope. We're looking to open up a new exhibit next week called The History of the DePores Club. In March, we'll have an exhibit called Successful African American Women, looking at successful African American women from a local and a national standpoint. An exhibit called A League of Our Own, the Negro League Baseball. African American street signs. With this exhibit I'm working on, I've been, a couple of years ago when we had the Native Omaha days, I had a gentleman who came into the museum and he was upset because I didn't know who he was, but he had a street named after him and he had done some really great things in the area. And so it made me feel bad that I didn't know who he was or his history. So I actually went out and found the street that was named after him, researched and found the history, and he actually came back in and I shared that information with him. And then last year I was driving around, I saw a street that was named after my cousin. And I had that thought, I wonder how many folks don't even know who he is. So I thought of an idea of getting all the street signs that are named after African Americans and display those in the museum along with a bio and a photo of that individual so they can see it. And I'm hopefully trying to work with getting maybe the city to agree to put QRC codes on those on the poles where those signs are displayed, where an individual could hold their phone up and find information about that information. And I want to have that the information housed on our website for a resource for people. And it'd be another tool to maybe attract the younger audience into the museum and make them aware of it. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at doing this year. And we look forward to the community helping support us by visiting us, by following us on Facebook. We're at Great Plains Black History Museum. And then also next month, we will have our annual membership drive, which people can, the community and people at large can support us through getting a membership.
Eric, just want to thank you on behalf of the community. You have done an amazing job before the pandemic, during the pandemic, through the virtual tours. Anytime people call on you, you make yourself available. We greatly appreciate what you're doing. We look forward to hearing more about the long-term vision, prayerfully, hopefully, some construction, development, building, anything to help expand and the work that you're doing in North Omaha. So we greatly appreciate you being here and being a part of the redevelopment of specifically North 24th Street and the 24th and Lake area. So thank you so much, Eric. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to be of service. Appreciate you.
God bless. We are getting ready to close out, and we're honored. And Jonathan, we've gone through a couple hours here, 2.5 hours. We're honored to have Councilman Ben Gray, who's with us by audio. Councilman Gray, I know you've been with us all morning, watching the presentations, discussions that have been going on. And we want to give you an opportunity to close us out. On the screen, I have some of the developments that are going on and have happened over the last 10 years in North Omaha. We've been talking a lot about how do we grow wealth and ownership in the community. We just heard from Malcolm X and then the Great Plains. So just want to give you a chance to make some comments about what you've seen, what you've heard, and then where we go for North Omaha.
Well, a couple of things. Thank you, Willie, first of all, for giving me an opportunity to be here. I tried to get in on Zoom and I don't know what happened. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the Business Improvement District, because that was one of the things that we achieved last year in 2020 in spite of COVID and so forth. And this year, there will be an assessment to all of the businesses in the area that are part of the Business Improvement District. And what those dollars will do will be used to help the city and other groups, it'll be leverage money for us to do things like streetscape, cleanup, and those kinds of things, but also to hopefully entice business to come into the area as well. So it's a way for us to raise money in the community to help do some things to try and address business in the community. Last year we also did the landlord registry, which is starting to have some great success. We had a lot of work to do early because of trying to get people registered and so forth, but we're doing pretty well with that now. Willie, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I heard today, because it has changed some of my focus and some of what I think we need to do this year. First of all, I was listening to Erin Porterfield, and as you know, Willie, over the course of several years, we were able to get the unemployment numbers for African Americans down from somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 or 17% to less than 7% before COVID hit. And so listening to Erin, I think it's going to be important now to look at the unemployment numbers this year especially for African Americans, and see what we need to do, because the city we may have to try and put more dollars in the Heartland Workforce Solutions if the numbers are drastically going up as they appear to be. So I think we need to put more resources into that. The other thing I want to say, Willie, which I think is important, is that, the city, I have to be, and the city has to be a little bit more intentional about their hiring practices and, about their procurement practices. We are looking now at how the city spends money and how they spend money and the opportunity to spend money with more people of color, doing business with more people of color, and being more intentional about it. We have to be more intentional about diversity and inclusion. I'm getting numbers now as it relates to city employment, and what I'm finding now is that we have the numbers that I'm hearing. I don't want to reveal them yet because I don't have them all in, but the numbers for Black women are shameful, quite frankly, and the city needs to do a better job of hiring African American Black women within city government. And we also need to look at our procurement policies. And in addition to that, looking at Heartland Workforce Solutions again, because we might have to do some things with that. One of the bright spots that I did want to talk about was Love Jazz and Art Center. The Turnback Tax Committee committed $40,000 to hiring a program operations person there, because it's our intention, never was the intention, to close it. And I'm not going to steal the thunder from the Business Improvement District or Preston Love Jr., but they have put together what I think is going to be a magnificent plan for reopening and addressing and working more specifically with young people and training them in music and art and spoken word and other sorts of artistic kinds of things like that. So, Love Jazz is moving right ahead. I think we've got a good plan in place. I'm hoping that we can open. We do have some renovation that we have to do, so I'm hoping that we do open by April or at the latest May. But that's a good project. But again, I think we've got to be more intentional as a city and as a community about diversity and inclusion. And I'm looking at numbers now because my concern about the number of Black women who are employed in city government is abysmal, and it needs to be addressed. So, that's kind of the highlights of some of the things that I plan to do this year. Also, keeping in mind that, we have a business improvement district that we have to work on. And the other thing that I want to say is that this year, we were able to talk more specifically about the introduction of Legacy Bank, the first African-American owned bank in more than 20 years. And that's going to open fairly soon. And with that, we've got a financial institution. The business improvement district is up and running. Love Jazz is going to be reopened again, hopefully by May at the latest. But again, we have to be really intentional about diversity and inclusion. And we cannot miss this opportunity to make sure that not only is the city, but other businesses in the community that want to align with us are looking at their procurement policies as well and trying to do more business, even if it's just taking employees to lunch at an African American heard Ashley earlier, and there are opportunities there for major corporations and others to do business with her and others, even if it's nothing but having lunch at their facility or having dinner at their facility sometime. Just something so that these companies are being more intentional about their diversity and inclusion. And with that, I'll stop, Willie. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But that's kind of my report for today.
Thank you, Councilman Gray, for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but I'm glad you're able to join in at the end here, because it's really hitting on where we're headed, creating wealth and ownership. And obviously we want to wrap health into that, all the work that's going on to create a healthy community. But social determinants address that regarding wages, careers, business, home ownership, and investments. That's where we're going in North Omaha. That's where we're going as far as growth and development for African Americans. So thank you for being on, Councilman Gray. And Jonathan and I are going to do some wrap up. I think we're right at 12:09. Amazingly, we've had, I think, close to 30 some voices this morning. So I appreciate, again, thank you, Councilman Gray. Jonathan and I are going to wrap up. Oh, by the way, on the Q&A, we had some questions come in through Facebook and other media, social media. We are planning for 2 weeks from today to have a session where there could be more interactive conversation with the community. Today was all about getting updated information out. We'll have a report available next week, and then we'll have a survey that goes out to make sure that everybody in the community that wants to be involved in how things move forward, not only with North Omaha, but within the African American communities, how things move forward, what are the next steps. Everyone in the community that is interested will have a chance to voice their specific ideas and recommendations through that survey. And then we'll have in 2 weeks, a conversation to answer some of those questions that have come up. So thank you again, Councilman Gray. Jonathan, any thoughts as we wrap up here? And by the way, we know we were planning to be done at noon. We're pretty close, but for those that want to stay on and hear a little bit more about the wrap up and next steps, Jonathan, we'll go over to you.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think we got the camera set up so that when I turn and look at you, it looks like I'm turning and looking at you. But I think there was, one particular word in what Councilman Gray shared that really stuck out for me, and it was that word opportunity. And I think that just out of crisis, often what we find in life is opportunity, is new opportunity. Some of the most innovative people in the world are such great innovators because they experience great opposition and great obstacle, which forced them to think about things differently, to reassess and reevaluate, to realign their priorities. And out of that becomes some of the greatest innovations in human history. And I think that 2020 provided that opportunity for us through obstacle, through opposition, through difficulty, through isolation. It provided us with the opportunity to be able to reevaluate some things, to be able to recommit to some things, to be able to reassess other things. And I believe that we are at a place, at a point in our community right now where we have an opportunity like never before, certainly never in our generation, to be able to work together collaboratively, to be able to invest at higher levels, to be able to commit even more, to be able to work together and put any kind of opposition or any kind of division aside, but to center and focus ourselves around common goals, common priorities, to commit to doing our part in that process. And I believe that we'll be able to see in this season acceleration and movement in our community, acceleration and movement in those dials like we haven't seen before. This is an amazing, amazing moment in our community, and all of the phenomenal leaders that had the opportunity to share today, and so many more that are doing great work all around our community that didn't have an opportunity to share today, but will have opportunities in with some of these future sessions. We have the people, we have the leadership, we have the resources. The question is, do we have the will to make the best out of this opportunity that is before us right now? 2025 is going to be here before we know it, and we have some pretty big, hairy, audacious goals for 2025. But we can work together. The vision has been written; it's plain. All we have to do is run now, and we'll be able to see progress in our community like we have never seen before. I am excited. Even with the difficulty and, the changes and the impact to the data from 2020, even in the face of that, I know that doesn't reflect what's really going on in our community. And so there are brighter days coming, and I'm excited to be here and to get to witness it firsthand.
Jonathan, thank you so much for not only co-hosting, but also helping with Janelle, a student here, helping put the work in the background. Thank you so much. We thank everyone for being patient with us. This is the very first year we've hosted the annual meeting via virtually, but great job, Janelle. Thank you, Jonathan. And to Jonathan's point, I just want to thank all of the speakers, elected officials, all of those involved, and even those, as Jonathan said, that were not able to present with the time limitations. We will have additional sessions coming up in the next few weeks, and there'll also be a lot more interaction opportunities. And the data, there's a lot more data that David Droz from UNO has helped put together that will be available in our report. We'll have a chance to get that into the community so you can look at that and then also have more questions. But we wanted to have a common set of data, look at the positive trends pre-COVID, but also the reality of things that we need to face post-COVID in the midst of COVID. We want to make sure that people understand, and one of the reasons we're still wearing masks is that this pandemic is still here. And there's work that's being done by a lot of health-based organizations, a lot of community-based agencies, foundations, and many others. So we greatly appreciate those that have been able to join us this morning, those that will be able to access this even beyond today. We will be sharing a survey again, starting on Monday, that we need everyone, actually today, we'll post it out on social media. Please share that survey. We want to gather more input, more questions, and then we want to invite all of our speakers and others to participate in ongoing sessions as we lead into the May election and as we lead into additional work that needs to happen in the community. With that, this is our time. This is our moment. Thank you so much for being a part of today. Thank you for, again, all of our speakers, all of our partners, everyone, all of those that have visited today through whatever form, and we look forward to following up within the next 2 weeks. Thank you. God bless. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll see you soon.